With this video, I'm going to expose the elite and show you that they're playing a game. And this game was manifested since the beginning of time. And it's all about your soul. And it's called the Double X game. And it's also called Alice in Wonderland. So I want you to watch this video, hopefully with not an emotional reaction, because it's going to push a lot of buttons. And you just need to absorb it with your left brain and just have, just think logically. And there's so many coincidences that's impossible for it not to be truth. And I'm going to show you how it's all written in the sky, and also how it all connects to the periodic table in science, which is basically what religion was at one time. It was just science. Now, it's called the X game mainly because of this symbol. This symbol represents Aleph, which is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So it's Alpha. And it also represents water. So the water symbol is the W or the M, which is the Aquarius. And then you also have a Taurus bull head. And then you see this also this kind of like stirrup shape. And these all represent the mother, which is this symbol, which is Alpha. You can see it here. It's the head, it's the first, it's the 1,000. Exodus, I am who I am. It represents that. Infallible aspects of God. It's the hook. It's also the Kether and the Shakma in the tree of Sephiroth, which I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but there it is in written word. You can see here it's used as M in Egyptian and Nun. This all represents water, the that M, and this is also for memory. So just remember that as we go through this video. And Nun, I'm going to explain to you what Nun is. You can see it's just a straight line. It looks like a needle or a nail. So here's the nail. It's the letter N. It's feminine. Sophet Nun. It's also son of. Nun is also of the 7 letters which receive the special crown. This event is also represented as Alice in Wonderland, and you can see this with Obama's party. We have, Obama's dressed in black. Michelle is dressed like a cat, and this represents the cat's eye nebula in the sky with the one eye. They're all worshiping this religion called Zooism, and I'm going to explain to you what it is. Marduk is all about the Anunnaki. This is a Sumerian religion. Marduk is the son of the calf, is Jupiter, because they're always worshiping the 7 planets. Nanurta is the barley lord, which is for harvest, is Saturn. The Nagai is the underworld lord, which is Mars. And Inanna is the spouse of heaven, which is Venus. Nabu, the announcer or glowing, is Mercury. It's an orange deity of wisdom and writing. Ha ha ha, we know who that is. And Nana, the moon, the green deity of fertility and fruitness. And Utu, the sun, is the yellow deity of justice, whose movements are the word of creation of An. So that's the real God, okay? Their Christ is our Enki. Okay, so I've done past videos showing you who Enki and, well, Thoth, it's really Thoth. So Nabu is the orange deity. So orange man bad fits in really accurately with Trump. He's also for writing and wisdom. Well, some people would say he's not a wise man, but I think he is, because I think he's playing people really, really well and getting people really riled up and making people think he's really stupid. He's also got other people thinking he's really smart. So Nabu, everything kind of, these deities kind of go through our mythos all the way through time, but they change names because, the time expands, but they're always with us, okay? So they have different names. So the meaning of Nabu means protect my jackass. That's pretty funny. And this is Nebuchadnezzar, okay, in Babylon. So it's all the same being. Here's another Arabic letter, or Hebrew letter, sorry, that is Nebuchadnezzar, which is Ra, which is the sun, right? The sun rays, it's the sun god, which is like Horus. So you can see how it all interweaves through all the different religions. So this is why you have to have just a clean slate mind and just take it all in. This is the Cole notes for their religion. And it's all about Anne, who is the, up in the Draco constellation. It's the Cat's Eye Nebula. And it's also about the chariots, of which is Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, the dippers. These are chariots, okay? They're golden chariots. They also have the way of Enki and the way of Enlil. These are the two brothers that are fighting over this world. And then there's the Queen of Heaven, and she represents Venus. But you can read through all this and get a bigger grasp of it, how it relates to, some of the religions that are practiced here. Oh, and the most important thing that I saw in here is that they call it the only God. And Trump says this a lot. He's always, when he says God, he always says, and there's only one God. And he's always saying only God. So it's right in this religion. Okay, so here's a diagram of how they control, where they're controlling. So you see Anne goes right to the Draco constellation, to the Cat's Eye Nebula, which is a fixed point. And then the real plane of the Earth goes to the small Ursa Minor, which is the small dipper, which are chariots, okay? And then Enlil rules the top of the world, and then Enki rules, this is, to me, is the Milky Way, okay? So, yeah, so you can then, the god also rules the equator. So this is why the bear is so important, okay? She's fertility. Currently, the little bear, the small dipper, drawing in the sky at the band of Enlil. The two spinning chariot constellations, which are draw the swastika in the four phases of time. The symbol associated with the polar supreme god in many cultures. So yeah, it's like the big bear is, the supreme god. The supreme god is also known as Atun, which ends up being atom. Okay, so the atom is all about this. This is basically everything that controls our universe is this diagram. Okay, so this is the toroidal field, and it's red shift, blue shift. The blue is water, and it represents water, and it turns to black, and the red through color, when eventually with the prism of color, it goes to white. Okay, so this is this whole dipole of this pull between red shift, blue shift, and it's always like a fight. This is why there's always chaos, and we see this everywhere. Hot water, cold water is red, blue, Republicans, Democrats. It's always this pull. Okay, so this all relates back to the atom, which is Adam. Okay, so what your way to escape this is to be able to get between the dark and the light, and you have to get into the twilight. When you can get into the twilight, you can save your soul. So this is, everything is functioning from this. You have this in your body. Your body has this toroidal field around you as well. And to get into your twilight, you have to get into your heart space. Yeah? And then the planet is like this. So there's always this worship to this toroidal field. Now the toroidal field is represented by the cow because it's a bull. It's the hyperbola is the center point, is the piece in the middle. So that's the hyperbola, it's the bull. And then the Taurus field is the Taurus, the cow, in constellation is Taur, and it means cow. So Ki, which is earth, is cow also, because it has a field around it as well. So anytime you see Ki or Ka, that means cow. I wanted to say about the Grateful Dead, you want to be grateful that you die, because you want to you kind of have your phoenix burn, and that's when you're grateful, and you're between the dark and the light. So this ends up making you become in the twilight zone. Okay, this is how you open the door, and there's the eye. Okay, the Cat's Eye Nebula, the eye of God, which is Anun or Atum, which is basically the Taurus field. Now, anybody that's following the MAGA movement in support of Trump knows that this is all through the symbolism for the movement. It's Kek, it's this green frog. Remember I said there was a fertility god that was green? Okay, so Kek, also an Egyptian, is the god of darkness. Yeah, he's chaos. He's creating chaos. And he's the bringer of light. So it's a little tricky chaos. according to the Keck myth, there was a watery mass of dark, directionless chaos was the only thing existing on the earth before there was land. There was 4 frog gods and 4 snake goddesses who lived in chaos. They were 4 pairs of deities who represents water, void, infinite, and darkness. The group of the 8 gods formed the Ogdoad. Every mythology tends to start with the primordial origins, and in the Egyptian mythology, the scope is covered by the ancient Egyptian gods Nun and Anut, the female form. So is Nun male or female? But it seems like it's just basically Nun is this watery abyss. It's also the sphere. So the watery abyss is really the sky. That's what I've discovered from all my research. So then I'm trying to find this Keck or Cook, and you have to go on Twitter. That's why all the clues are on Twitter. And above this soldier's head, I'm looking at the names of who were all killed in Pearl Harbor, and there's a man named Cook. I'm like, okay, who has that last name? But I just thought it was really weird that it's right over the top of his hat, which is how, all this Q movement is teaching you to look and see things. And so there it was. The dragon Dawazi was thought to be responsible for the eclipses and comets in the Draco constellation. The Mayan Kukulkan represents Quetzalcoatl, or Kulkulkan. It sounds like KKK, right? Is Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is basically Thoth. Yeah, so there he is there, the winged bird. So yeah, basically you want to be a winged bird, because I'm going to tell you why in the end of all of this. So when Trump was born, the sun was right between the 2 horns. This is actually the Silver Gate of Osiris, and there he is with, this is a symbolism for Osiris, well, for Isis, and he happens to be right between the 2 horns. So Trump's bloodline goes back to the Micloid family in Scotland, and this is their logo. You see there's the horn, Taurus with the horns. This is his family. And then the flying legs, like this is the kind of like the swastika, legs flying, and I'm going to tell you what that is later. And then there's the castle, which is the city. Okay, hold fast actually means the shepherd's hook. Yeah, so yeah, this is the game. Now the Micloids also have the Micloids of Lewis, which is a sun. I burn quill I see. And you notice the yellow tartan, okay? That's for the honey bees, okay? So just remember that. The Lewis, I burn, will I see, I shine, not burnt, I shine, not burnt, I burn and shine. Okay, so this is all about activating your chakras, your lamps, getting your oil, and basically being on the good side. So you can see Trump's logos have both, right? So, and he also worships the Taurus, the bull, okay, because that's what this whole earth is. That's what we are. We're in this toroidal field. So all this symbolism is not just Satanism, okay? The horn is the field, okay? It's earth. It's ki, ka, it's the cow. And this is where the whole story gets a little bit off kilter. And here in 2005, Trump was pretty chummy with Hillary Clinton. Doesn't look like they're too upset being with them there. So, you can say, oh, well, he changed and he decided to, fight them. I'm telling you, it's all a game and they're all in on it together. And that's the hard thing to take in, but it's the reality, and I will prove it. Okay, so confifi, Trump's little funny word that everybody laughed at. This was on the 8chan. So the meme starts and has an M in the 3rd letter. So M meaning water. PP starts with P and has a P in its 3rd letter. I propose that, we do this. What do you guys think about Fifi, announced like thief, but with an F? Fifi could be the scorpion, maybe in contrast with Pipi the frog. So Pepe the frog, which was the frog that I showed you before. His name is Pepe. So, you know, it all comes back down to this. And then the meme is the W and M upside down. This is really important, okay? This W and M upside down. And I'll tell you about it after. So here in Arabic, P and Fi are the same. And it ends up being meaning fun. So I think Trump's just having a lot of fun. Now all this coding and decoding has multiple layers, right? So you can have many meanings from the same thing. So the word cov, a promise made by a deed. It's also a tree. It also has to do with the coventry of like witchcraft. So high priestesses. I'm going to read from the bottom up here. As the god of wisdom, Nabu was linked to the Romans and Mercury and the Egyptians as Thoth, and the Greek god Apollo. Okay, so he's also rode in on a winged dragon. I'm going to explain where that is in the sky. It's also the planet Mercury. Trump is Mercury out of all the planets. Nabu describes with writing, fates assigned to men. So he basically decides whether you stay or you go. Okay, so here is Trump's apartment, all full of Apollo and Greek you know, artifacts, and it's all in gold. And there's a reason for that. The mythos of Thoth is that he decides whether your heart is weighs heavier than a feather, then you don't get to stay. You don't get to stay in the Golden City. You get to, you know, go to hell basically. So that is who Thoth is. He's a healer. He's going to help you escape this realm, or he's going to put you in hell. That's the mythos of Thoth and Apollo. Okay, so we all know that Trump was inaugurated on the 70th year, 7th month, and 7th day because this basically matches biblical text, but it also matches the tarot. So the tarot card for the universe is number 21, which 777 adds up to. Now the universe card always has the 4 great year zodiacs, which is Taurus, Leo, the eagle, which is actually Scorpio, and then the man, which is always Aquarius. Okay, like the angel man. So we also see here the all-seeing eye, and it's like there's, you know, at the top, there's a big snake, and then the person or woman trying to climb this. So this is all about Judgment Day, okay, which happens on the great year, end of the great year. So on this one that I did, you can see that the Leo and Taurus are at the bottom. Sometimes it's mirrored the other way, depending if you're writing the zodiacs clockwise or counterclockwise. This one is done counterclockwise, so that's why it's like that. So I've explained this before in my other videos. I just wanted to show you this wheel. This is the great year. It's every 25,920 years this event happens, and the constellations have to be aligned in these places. And there it's representing here of Leo at the bottom. We have Taurus on the right, Leo on the left, and you can see the all-seeing eye, which is in Draco constellation, is right above. So it creates like a clock. And this is why you have like Timex and Rolex. It's all about this X. And they always have the hands at 10 and 10 to and 10 and after. It's because of Leo and Taurus, because they represent the queen of heaven. And I'm going to explain to you who that is. And then the sun is up in the Golden Gate. So it's like this makes this perfect Y. There's 2 main gates up in the sky. So there's only 2 gates, entryways into heaven. One being the intersection between Taurus and Gemini. It is known as the Silver Gate, which is between the 2 horns, which is Osiris's gate. And then the intersection between Scorpio and Sagittarius, which is Ophiuchus, is located as known as the Golden Gate of heaven. The galactic center lies visually from our solar system along the line and passes through the elliptical, which is like the Milky Way. This is all in the Milky Way. In 2024, everything is in perfect location. Okay, so the sun is in the Golden Gate, but it's right on the Lagoon Nebula. Okay, this is super, super important, that it's on this black hole, right at this time, on the winter solstice. Now, this Golden Gate also is represented through the Arc of Triomphe, which has to do with Spain, I believe. And this is really crazy, you know, because Triumph, it's Trump, right? It's the horn, you know, the horn's going to blow. So, yeah. So this is the Silver Gate. You can see Jupiter is right between the horns, which is Jupiter is Zeus. And then you have Orion here, this little, at the bottom of Orion, that's the hand of God. The other red line here I have is Aries, which is the crown chakra, and then you have the twins above, and the twins being twin towers. So now here we have golden ratio, phi. You know, golden ratio phi has to do a lot with our DNA. This is how our DNA looks from the up, when you look down into it. It ends up looking like a rose. And this is super important because the symbolism of the rose is used a lot in the elite. And I'll show you how they're doing that. But also the golden ratio ends up creating like this perfect frequency, this perfect symmetrical spiral, which, you know, is in a lot of nature. So it's basically God's math, but there's a little twist to God's math, which I'm going to explain later. It's going to be a little shocking. So anyhow, so phi is super important. Now the rose is also represented as the this water lily, which is the locust. So it represents the heaven, and it has to do with our DNA. This is what this whole thing is all about. The biggest commodity in the universe is our DNA. Okay, our DNA that can activate our flame of the phoenix. This is what is the biggest thing, in the most valuable thing in the universe. Okay, so this is all with the plains of Sharon. You can read it if you want. It all goes back to Israel, and that little piece of fertile land, I mean, is like the plains of Sharon, and that is considered to be heaven, is this green space that is so perfect. Now, here we have phi, and you can see like phi also relates to the square and the circle. Okay, so the parameter of the circle, the parameter of the square, the dimension of the circle, it all adds up, you know, so that it's the perfect same number. And it just happens to be that Barack Obama signs his name as a phi. So this got me kind of thinking. I'm like, why is he signing his name as phi? So the meaning of Barack means emerald. It also means lightning. Okay, so there's, you know, this kind of crazy, this precious green stone. The lightning part stands out to me most. And here, Bama means high places in Numbers 22:41. Now, remember back in the Zooism, the Anunnaki religion, Enlil was the calf god, the cow god. You know, and I was explaining to you how it's a Taurus field, but here we have Obama with this weird hand position on this cow. I knew I would find a picture of him with a cow. As soon as I was like, all right, I'm going to find a picture with Obama with a cow. And sure enough, there's pictures with Obama with cows, and there's also one with him with the golden cow, because it's usually the Golden Gate, or the, you know, God's gate is represented as a golden cow. So, yep, there, of course, I found it. So there's also this movie which has Satan in it, and the actor looks identical to Obama. And there's also somebody on YouTube that has figured out that Obama's face is the exact same dimension as Akhenaten, which is, you know, crazy. It's this Egyptian god, but his face is exactly the same shape. So I just find it all very amusing. So I'm just putting the pieces together. You can do what you want with it. Okay, so of course I had to check out his birthday, and the sun happens to be in Cancer. Now, Cancer and is like the summer solstice, right? and then Capricorn is the winter solstice. So his sun is in Cancer, which is the summer solstice. Now Jupiter is the god, which happens to be in Capricorn, okay? And Saturn, which happens to be Satan, is also in close to Capricorn. So I thought that was pretty funny that his birth date is all lining up with the mythos. And then, of course, you can find him doing all the bull, hand gestures everywhere, along with other elites. So, we have even, what is the Pope doing it here? And yeah, so they're all playing a game. Hillary Clinton, yeah, they all know. We're the dumbasses. Okay, so one of the mythos is with Osiris, Horus, and Isis, right? This all goes back to the original Sumerian religion with the queen, the king, and the born-again son, okay? So here we have Obama's last post on Twitter, and of course they're looking at Osiris's Washington monument, which represents Osiris. If you don't know the whole Osiris, Horus story, you're basically worshiping it every day, every hour of the day. If hour is Horus, you just have to move the U and the R. And this story is significant mythos through all our cultures. Okay, it's not just an Egyptian story. So basically, Osiris is the king. His brother kills him, chops him up into 14 different pieces, spreads all his pieces out all over Egypt. Isis is distraught. She wants to put him back together, which she can. Can't find his missing piece. It happens to look like the Washington Monument. But so she ends up getting impregnated anyhow, and then has her son Horus, which is actually, I guess she used part of his DNA from, Osiris, her husband. So Horus is part the father and part the son. Okay, so it's kind of a weird story, but that story kind of goes through all our mythos. And Horus basically is the sun. He's the sun god. He is the sun. Okay, so now here we have Beyonce holding up the pyramid, which, is Egyptian. And it's also on the US dollar bill. But this symbol actually means fire. Okay, so fire is up, triangle, and alchemically triangle down is water. Okay, and then you see all the actors and the elites all doing the all-seeing eye and the triangles. It's because they all know this religion. Okay, so Gep, he's got the bird on his head. This is the father of Osiris. There's a father and mother, which is Gep and Net. And you can see here, he's laughter creates earthquakes, and he allows crops to grow. Now, the biggest crop that I think they're growing, here's the clincher, is the DNA crop. Okay, so that's when you go, this woman's crazy. But actually, I'm not, because it's all the symbolism comes down to that we are the crop, we're the sheep, we're the sheeple, we're the crop. Here they also have him dealing with the scorpion sting, yep, and how to heal them. So he's growing a crop, but he's also teaching the sheeple how to heal. He's a great crackler. So this is basically Nabu, but in Egyptian. It's basically the sky and earth like joining together. But here, down here, I have it written under red. He also represents a swan. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. And the duck is the sun god. So the sun is represented by a duck, but also a swan. Yeah, and you can't make this stuff up. Here's Trump sitting on a swan. I thought it was Cygnus constellation, but obviously it is, but it represents this god as well, which is cool to find that out. And he's got his bare feet because he's grounded, and you need to be grounded. And then Trump last Halloween, representing that he is Thoth or Asclepius, which is this, whole lineage of gods, with his snake, with the Egyptian girl with her snake on her head. There we go. Here's the whole mythos right in front of you. So then this gets even crazier because we have the snake as the Vatican. This is the Vatican. It's the snake head. I don't know if you can see it on the bottom. It's upside down. But big snake head with his two eyes. And then there's the big key. And I'm going to show you where the key is. The key to heaven. I know where it is, and I know what opens the key to heaven, and it's not what you think. Even the queen and the bishop here knows the game. It's always go back to black. You want to be on the black tile, not the white tile. And I'll explain why. It has a lot to do with the hyperbola between the dark and the light. And the black has a double meaning, and I'm going to explain. It is good and it is evil. Okay, so here's Diana's funeral, Princess Diana. They mention the goddess of hunting, which is Diana, the goddess Diana, which goes back to Isis. Okay, all these mythos in the Greek mythos, all these women, they always go back to Isis because they're all worshiping Venus. Okay, so most of the female goddesses are worshiping Venus, like Aphrodite and all these ones, they're all Venus. The four royal stars of the apocalypse, and they're the four horses of the apocalypse. Aquarius, well, it's just below Aquarius, is Fomalo. That's the white horse. And Aldebaran, which is in the Silver Gate, it's in Taurus, that's the pale horse. Regulus, which is in Leo, is the red horse. And Entrées, which is in Scorpio, is the black horse. When you're in rage or you're stressed out in your chaos, you're in rage or emotion, that's the red horse. The black horse is basically you get killed before you even have a chance to make it anywhere. And then the white horse is freedom, and the pale horse is basically hell. So yeah, so I'm going to show you how to stay out of that place. And here's just to show you that all the elite know this game, and they are having fun playing the game. So on the winter solstice, well, the day after, December 22nd in 2024, the moon is in a three-quarter moon, which represents yin and yang. And it's also at the 22nd hour, which represents 11:11. We're back down to 22:22. The three-quarter moon will be in its seventh phase on December 22nd. And this is a perfect representation of yin and yang, male and female energies. And if you see right down at the bottom there, this moon is in 55% on the 22nd, which is an important number through the Q movement. Okay, basically this is like the whole zodiac on the earth and how the sun moves through the earth. And at the top is Cancer, which is the summer solstice, and at the bottom is Capricorn, which is the winter solstice. So it starts in Aries in spring. Okay, and you get Aries, Taurus, and then you go Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, and then Libra's in the center. It's the heart. We got to balance your heart. Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn is at the bottom, and then you got Aquarius, and then Pisces. This is interesting with Sagittarius, which is the spear at the Golden Gate. Hannibal, who lost an eye, 22 to 11. Sagittarius is one-eyed. So that, I never really knew that before, so that's super interesting. Okay, so here the arrowhead is also called Si Nun. Okay, so it's Nun again. Remember I was talking about Nun before? Yeah, so we're back to Nun again, which is snake, right? So you need the arrow to kill the dragon that happens to be in the Golden Gate, and that way you can master the snake or the reptile. So this is another star. It's the Polis star. It's actually the city. Polis means city. It's the Golden City. It's the desert birds. It's like you become a bird when you go into the city. Keeper of the Nams, the Nanams. I think that's like the flame. It's your phoenix. It's your burning phoenix is what happens when you go into the Golden City. And it's down here, the trump cards. It's the lovers. So your heart's open, and you have love in your heart. So you get to stay with your phoenix. Now here is the Polis, because that's the Polis star. I couldn't believe it when I found that star was named the city. It's also the Republic. The philosopher king, form of good. Okay, so yeah, this city includes wisdom, courage, moderation, and justice. It's the just city. Yeah, so it's the golden city. So yeah, and Nunki is the star that shoots the arrow, and that's back to the snake again. So the Nunki is the snake. The sea is the black abyss. You know, they represent it as water, but it's the sky. It's the black abyss in the sky. It's the ether. It's the darkness. It's also ruled by Venus, the Nunki star. So it always goes back to Venus. Just remember that. Now the Nun letter can mean bad luck and can also mean brass. So there, this is, I'm going to explain to you what the two, like there's always a bipolar kind of thing. She's the fish, large fish or whale. Okay, so we got the whale again there. It's always the snake. You know, it's like the sea monster, octopus, Ursula, you know, whatever, however you want to use the symbolism, but it's like this water snake that bites you. Nun, which is gonna nun, like is gonna freak most people out. It means Vestal pagan priestess. Okay, when you go on etymology, etymology is like etymology. I like that one. But yeah, so she's a pagan priestess, is a nun. So the nun symbol is this black mark that has like kind of like a half hole in it. And that mark happens to be on this particular moth's wings. You know, when you get the Mothman symbolism, that's what this is referring to. And to me, this black mark, if you put it on its side, it looks like a gateway to get into something. Okay? So yeah, this is how they use the symbolism all through our culture. Okay, so the Golden Gate, Sagittarius, has this teapot in it. So it gets very hot in the Golden Gate. And you gotta, your feet are gonna turn to brass. There's a lot of brass going on. Now, you see how it's all, I circled it all in red here. Then you got the lagoon, and you got, that's the top one is the city. But the blue is also the chariot that happens to be the tail of the Azure dragon in Chinese constellations. And then here we have the U.S. Army has the teapot with the arrows, right? So that's Sagittarius. It's got your arrows. You've got your, you know, you're going to get bit by the snake, Nunki. Those are Nunki arrows, and you're going to get hot. So, and then we have here with Van Gogh, he also did the chariot in the sky, which is the dipper. You know, they always say it's a spoon. Well, it makes sense. It's a spoon. It is that. So, okay, so here we have the Dipper constellation. This is the Chinese. And the Dipper, again, is Sagittarius, which I just explained. And it's a snake, and it's shaped like a basalt. Okay, so I started looking at what is basalt? And it happens to be a black stone. So Dan Winters was talking about these black stones. The Olmec stone heads. They're a black stone that's a volcanic stone, but has like a magnetic quality to it, which is really crazy. And they used to use them with mirrors, like to create like some type of like polar, you know, magnetic force between them with mirrors. But these black heads represent something, right? They're magnetic heads. So what's crazy is I looked into this stone, and this stone actually is more magnetic when there's thunderbolts. Okay, so there's 7 pieces to the dragon in Chinese constellation. It's the door to God. Okay, it is the last piece, the chariot. It's called a winnowing basket. So it's a basket. These chariots are baskets, and that's a little disconcerting. So here's all the pieces of the dragon in the Chinese constellation, the 7 pieces. And I just went on Stellarium to map it out for you. So it goes to the Scorpio tail, up to the city, and it also comes from the mother, Virgo. And yeah, so you got the balance symbol, and then you get the Scorpio sting, and then you go up to the city in the basket. You go to the city, the golden city in the basket. So this dragon is called the Azure dragon. It's a sky blue color, but the Azure is like a stone um, that happens to be lapis lazuli, which is a blue stone that you see in a lot of ancient cultures. So Cleopatra used this for blue eyeshadow. The Virgin Mary was also always symbolized with this blue stone as well. So it represents something good. Okay, so the blue stone is a good thing. It's a sapphire. It also represents a ki, which is Q. It looks like a QI, but it's spelled your chi or your ki. It's a force field. It's magnetic dipoles. So the feng shui, aligning cities, sites, and buildings. The Azure dragon. See, it's down here. It's a bird. It's in Scorpio. So yeah, that's where you get your wings. Basically, is when you get bitten by the snake. Well, more correctly, when you can handle being bitten by the snake, you get to ride the dragon to the Golden City. So the chi is all about, or the ki in your body is all about connecting this magnetic dipole, which is the red shift, blue shift again, like I showed previous. So it's just showing this, how this relates to the Azure dragon. It's the balancing of these two energies. So Horus, the child, there's different stages of Horus, but Horus the child, which is the son of Isis and Osiris, he always had his finger up at his mouth as if to be quiet, to not say anything, chin to the finger kind of thing. And you see this with they worshiping went to Serapis. Apis is bee, okay? So this whole thing always goes back to the bees and the moths, basically. Yeah, so he had his finger to his mouth. Let's see what else he says. Oh, he's Harpo. Yeah, with the Groucho Marx and Harpo. Yeah, it always goes back to that. Let's see, the babe in the egg, blue, sits on the flower of the Nile, so it's the blue egg. Havkas is the trickster god. Okay, Harpo Marx. Roses, a symbolism. And then we have JFK Jr. He used to always go around holding his pinky finger. It'd be too obvious if he stuck it to his chin, but I think, they were all in on this. These are all really elite families, and they know exactly what's going on. So basically here, Horus the child was transformed into the Greek god Harpocrates after Alexander the Great. You know how Oprah Winfrey, her show is called Harpo? We always say it's Oprah spelled backwards, but it's Harpo. Yeah, it's all. I'm sorry. There's too much symbolism, and I'm just like get overwhelmed sometimes. I'm like, ah. Okay, so yeah, so Nut and Geb, this is the sister. She has a city on her head too, but so there's two cities. That's what I've figured out. There's two cities. There's the Golden City, but there's also another city. So Nefertiti's has the basket, seems like a basket city, and then Isis has this city that isn't a basket, and she has the ankh in her hand. Okay, so that's the two differences between the two sisters. Isis is represented by Venus as well. So let's see here. So in the red planet must be the morning star. This is all talking about the morning star. Mercury was called Apollo, and Mercury, when it appeared in the evening sky, Venus is Phosphorus in the morning, and Hespersphere in the evening. Yeah, I'm going to get into all this, but there's this whole thing with the morning star and the evening star all relating around Venus, and this is Isis's planet. And if you notice here, Venus and Earth makes the pentagon, which is all over the U.S., right? It's on their flags, it's the pentagon. It's this whole thing with Venus. Venus and Isis, she's the queen of heaven, okay? And it makes the rose. We talked about the rose before being heaven, and there it all is. Everything comes down to science, and all the mythos, this is what people don't understand, all the mythos is talking about the sky, okay? And the sky and what happens on specific times when planets are in specific locations have been mapped through all ancient history, and people know when things like come back and return. Okay, so this is Venus. Okay, so Venus has the morning star and the evening star assigned to her. Okay, now the morning star um, is is Phosphorus. Okay, he's the light bringer. Now this is when people freak out. It's Lucifer. Okay, so it's the light bringer is Lucifer, and Hephaestus is Vesper is the evening star. So this is why this whole Queen of Heaven, she has two aspects. She has, light or darkness, basically. Oh, and I just wanted to show here that the Princess Diana, who she was named after, the last name of Diana is Lucifer's. So there you go, light bringer. Okay, so Venus has two brothers, basically. There's Phosphorus, the dawn bringer, and Hesperus, the evening star. Hesperus means hope, okay, and Phosphorus is Phosphorus. So basically, the two brothers whose fame were known abroad, they had flocks of sheep, and they were beautiful with gold and yellow, and these sheep were as Mela. So Mela is the fleece. It's also the apple. Yeah, the apple. The apple is also that cat's eye nebula that I showed you, the God's eye. The Big Apple, New York, that's why Trump lives there, and the apple of your eye. It's all about the apple. And the apple happens to be the fruit or the sheep. Lover of apples, lover of songs, lover of sheep is Phil O'Mella. Okay, so they like the sheep. It's but it's there you got the phi again. Okay, phi lo. It's like phi loves Mella. So it loves the apple, loves the sheep. Okay, and so then I got to this Kumbha Melas, which I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but it's this big, huge pilgrimage walk that the Muslims do, and they do this annual bathing, which they go and they dip in the water. And Kumbha relates to Aquarius. Aha, it's about the water again. Okay, so what's crazy about this, there's a pitcher that, has the water, and it's the nectar of immortality. And the gods and the demons fight over this pot of Kumbha, is the nectar, in order to gain immortality. Okay, this makes me think, okay, what the heck is this stuff? And, everybody goes and does the pilgrimage to go wash in the water to wash their sins away. Yeah, so this is really interesting. So this Kumbha pot in etymology is something that produces a sharp ringing sound. So then I started thinking about those singing bowls, when you make those bowls, but it says like it's like a cymbal, so it's like it crashes, it makes a sound, frequency. Poppy juice comes to this too, the opium, and so you get like this kind of high. And it also says here dealing with the wanderwort. The Venus is the wandering star. That's what she's called. And then the wander is to turn, to twist, to weave. Remember the weaving baskets? Twist, to plait, to weave, to bind. It's a clockwork to wind up. Yeah, so then I'm like, okay, so they're getting this Kumbha Mela stuff, and there's a lot of, twisting and turning. So then this brings you to the Kumbha pot. It's the Canopus, it's the star. It has to do with Serapis, it's again with Osiris and Isis, right? It's the jar. And it has these lids with human heads on them. Okay, and then you're going, that embalms bodies. You're like, okay, it's to bring. The queen cuts off the offering to Venus, a tuft of fur or tail. So you're kind of like going, okay, so there's heads on these pots, so not looking good. So basically you don't want to take a bite out of your apple because it puts a hole in your golden fleece, because the apple is the golden apples. If you know the Hercules stories, it's all about the golden apples. And the golden apple is the cat's eye nebula again, okay? Because if you look at it, it's an eyeball, but if you look at it also, it's like two slices of apple, like split open, and it's also golden. And so, yeah, so this is the golden apple, and the fleece are the same. Okay, so here's the Hercules story. Hercules was during the quest for the golden apples of Herpetes. Follow the straight road, and first, O thou, all thou shall come to the north winds, where do thou beware of the roaring hurricane, lest unaware it twists thee up and snatches thee away in a twirling wind. Yeah, that's basically what happens. If you don't have your golden apples on, if you don't have your golden apples, you're going to be twisting up. So 33 times in the Bible, the word uprooted occurs. And I thought this one was interesting, where it says, the Lord uprooted them from their land in his anger, rage, and great wrath, and threw them into another land where they are today. That's very significant, and I'll explain why later. This brings the whole bride and groom into the whole story too, with Venus. And yeah, so I'll let you guys read that just so I can shorten up this video a bit. Okay, this is the whole thing with Isis and the Serapis. It has to do with, she has magical powers. She has a sun. She also Hathor, the headdress of the sun between the horns. She's also venerated of Mary in Christianity. The rise of Christianity basically killed this religion. So there's something going on with this whole Queen in Heaven, and it's being hidden. I think that's the whole story, that, you know, the Queen in Heaven is she's the god, she's the Queen God, you know. Ariana Grande just did a song about it. The God is a woman, yeah. So she's the Queen of Heaven. So here it's all the Hathor. This all has to do with the afterlife, you know, and the sycamore tree, and yeah. So basically, Isis ended up being the whole representation of Hathor, but it's all the same goddess. So there she is, the queen bee. This is the Magna Mother. Okay, the Magna Mother has all these things all over her, and look, there was sheep beside her, or maybe they were lions, but their heads got chopped off. I bet you they were sheep. So those things hanging off her, they look like pomegranates, but they're figs. And there's the twist, because a fig and a pomegranate look the same. And the thing with this is, the female wasp that flies into the wasp that flies into a female fig loses its wings and gets eaten, but a wasp that flies into a male fig lays its eggs and gets to leave. Okay, so the fig tree is the tree of life. It's the sycamore tree, and here they say it. It's fig mulberry. Species of fig is called the sycamore. So Isis is related to the sycamore tree, but it's a fig tree. And the fig tree is the tree of life because of what happens to your wings. You're basically locusts, and you're flying out of here, and you either lose your wings or you gain your wings. That's why you want to be a bird. Okay, so the Buddha, the Bodhi tree is ficus. It's like fig again, sacred fig trees, and the leaves on them are all hearts. Okay, so yeah, I guess if your heart is not in the right place, you go to the you get to use you're part of the hive, basically. You're part of the pollen. Here's a good one. This fig tree, is called the wak tree. It's like wawa tree. Basically, it's all females in there. So that's because if you go into the female fig, you lose your wings, and then you fall to the ground, and you go wawa. And the other one is the old man in the sea with the dragon on his back, and he's got to kill the dragon. Here's the Old Man in the Sea, which is Ernest Hemingway, that song, that book that he wrote, Old Man in the Sea. The Old Man in the Sea, to get him drunk, yeah, and he kills the dragon with a stone. and he wanted to get him drunk. I'm going to explain to you about getting drunk. There's a whole thing about getting drunk with this mythos. I'm telling you, it's really crazy. So if you go into Hermetic Kabbalah, which is the cow bull, you get into seeing that the whole Kabbalah tree represents the mother, the sister, the daughter, the beloved, the queen, and she's the mother. So tree of life, it's again the mother. So yeah, it's all there. She's the queen, and she's coming for your kumba in the kumba pot. So way back before Egyptian folklore, it was this thing called Cabella. Cabelli, she's the Magna Mother. She's represented in many different forms. Here's Fortuna. She has the zodiac wheel around her head. And then the other one up here is in Syria. She has the city on her head. She's like the golden city. And then you see the snakes again, but it's interesting how they just keep switching the names, but it's all this, dominant kind of woman, priestess that basically is represented through a golden city, it seems like, or some type of city. So maybe it's the two mixed together, because the Isis and her sister there was two different cities. So this is the whole thing about it all. But this one seems to be the golden city. Okay, so, but is that like just getting the pollen? And there's a gate, you see the gate to go through. So all the mythos is there. Okay, so this whole thing about the Kabbalah, which represents the Taurus field, ends up, here it's showing you all the different gods and goddesses that represent it. But it comes down to this stone. It's this black stone that represents this Cabella or Cabelli. She has different names, how it went through different time periods. But yeah, it ends up being a black stone. So I'm just trying to figure out all her, symbolism. She makes a magnificent appearance. She has the two lions with her chariot. So I showed you that's has to do with the Ursa Minor and Ursa Major, the Big Dipper and Little Dipper. That's the chariots that represent her. Okay, so here she's represented to be in green. She's called the Mother of Gods, the drum which is ascribed to her. So yeah, so I'm just trying to show there's many different things that represent her. So here, let's see. Oh yeah, she's the mountain, where sacrifices to her were first instituted for the cube. Yeah, so she's the cube and she's also the mountain. She's also the wife and brother of Saturn. That's interesting. So she had this boy that loved her, and the pine for his sake of something to do with pipes, like wind pipe. I think it's like reeds, to make music. There's a box. It's always the box, the pine box. So sometimes the pine tree represents her, the green pine tree, and sometimes the stump. So this is weird because Cabella also means the cave and the cube. And this is important. I'm going to explain why later. But it's, yeah, so everything's bipolar, right? So yeah, okay, what is it? But there's always a good and an evil to most things, and even in symbolism. So this thing with this Gordian knot, they always wore it at heart level. And I think it's like represents like untying your knot in your heart. The key to the campaigns is this birdless rock, a city built with 7,000-foot tower of rocks, believed that no birds could go on. Yeah, it's a city way high up in the sky, all right, that no birds can go to. And here it is. It's called the Siege of Arnos. It's a city where there's no birds. It's related to Alexandria. And yeah, it's a citadel. So yeah, there it is. Now to bring this into reality, real time, there's Mount Sipylus, which is Kibelus, because she was called Sibylus also. They got changed from C to S to K, just to kind of throw you off the path. Yeah, there she is. She's the watcher. She's the big stone head watching on Mount Sipylus. So there's this whole worship of black stones, right? And it has to do with women's spirituality, because you're worshiping the queen of heaven. It's all to do with the black stone, and it has more meaning than just that. I'm going to show you how it relates to stars in the sky as well. Okay, so these black stones, right? They're called Omphalos stones of beetles. So it's like, remember Trump was talking about beetles the other day? House of God. And anyhow, so these black stones are the stones I was talking about before that have this magnetic ability when lightning, thunder, lightning, I guess, is in the earth because it's coming from underneath. It's a volcanic stone. So here is the whole worship in Mecca of this black stone, right? And then it ends up becoming the black cube. And then here we have in Revelations, Federal City walls are dedicated precious stone with jasper, the second sapphire, and the third agate, and the fourth emerald. So we have all these different color stones, which is interesting. So here we have Revelations 21:11. It shone with the glory of God, with its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, a clear crystal. So I looked into jasper, and jasper relates to your chakras, which is super important. These are your 7 lamps, the oil up your spine, your spinal tap oil is basically your oil for your lamps. So this is interesting that jasper is relating to the chakras. So the cube city in Guardians of the Galaxy, so we have all the different colors are showing that in that movie, that's symbolism. So they're saying here jasper is related to silica. It says an impure variety of silica with all different colors, rarely blue, but silica is really important, especially with Ascension. It has to do with hydrating your body. That's how you get hydrogen in your body. You can take silica tablets and you can make hydrogen to put in your water, and it helps regenerate your cells and everything to make you younger. So I think this stone was super important in ancient times, so they were using it a lot. So I think it has something to do with that. There's this ancient city in Tiahuanaca in Peru that has all these carved out letter H's, with like laser precision. Like this is one of the oldest sites, like city sites in the world. So this goes back, I don't know, thousands of years, but it makes me think of hydrogen. I think it's really important, and because of the Hydra serpent snake that's in the constellation right beside Virgo. I think this is important. This hydrogen is really more important than we realize to stay hydrated in this event that's going to happen. This is what led me to the whole Zooism religion. Was they were talking about like how the ancients believed the earth was flat and they had domes, and they believed there was 3 layers to heaven, and the top layer being Lulu Danitu stone, which is a red and white and black, well, speckled stone. So personally, I'm starting to think that's like hell. That's the level of hell, and you don't want to go there. You want to be in the blue heaven. So this E-Kerr complex, it's E-K and then the U-R again. It's always the U-R. I'll explain that later. House of Darkness, considered by some to be a prison or a chasm. No grain was cut. There was a gate of peace, gate of judgment. You're a guinea pig. Dread, terror, panic in people, especially against the evil and the ignorant. Amongst the evil and the ignorant, sorry. Queen of E-Kerr examines closely both the righteous and the wicked. Does not allow the wicked to escape. So to me, this is like Smart City. This is like the bad city, and you really don't want to go there. And I'm going to show you how you're not going to go there, because you're going to know which way your path is. So basically it's about the Twin Cities, right? And the whole show, the Twin Cities, it's all relating to that. The necropolis, polis means city. meaning city of the dead. Okay, so it's like, there's no emotion there. Everybody's kind of just out of it. And the acropolis is at the end, at the top. Be sharp, to rise out, to point, to pierce. Yeah, this is the good one. You want to be in the acropolis. This would be the golden city. So ac meaning raptural bird. You want to be able to fly like a bird, a falcon. This is how you get into the golden city. You got to be able to keep your phoenix and learn how to activate it so you can fly there yourself without being, raptured. Okay, so here's some more about the Queen of Heaven and the Cabela. It relates a lot to um, the March of Hilary. Okay, so the pine trunk was erected by young men and women covered with blood, and they sacrificed oxens. They danced around them. Yeah, so yeah, Hillary's related to this too. So, and then we have Hillary Clinton's logo, or her crest for her family name, happens to be a tree stump. Okay, so, and it's purple. That's the purple rain at the end of the whole journey, which I'll explain. And then you got the red and white. That's the high heaven. It's the red and white jasper. Okay, so this black stone is actually the navel of Earth. Okay, and I figured out where it is in the sky. You can go through all this. This has to do with the whole thing with the black stone, cube shape. Yeah, so yeah, anyhow, it's all about the navel, plugging the deep. It's like, yeah, it's plugging the heavens is really what it's doing. It's not the deep waters underneath us or this mystical underworld. It's the abyss is above us, so it's keeping a plug in the abyss. So we see it here with the snake. It looks like a navel, like it's shaped like that. But then it ends up, yeah, it's the stone of Apollo. Apollo again. There we go again. We got the Apollo again. I guess that's why the whole egg shape thing, it's for that plug on the earth, the whole thing with Easter. And so here's the Holy of Holies. It's the well of the souls, and of course it has a Venus star on it. So yep. It's like it's all making sense now. So here we have Canopus, which is the star that is like on the South Pole. It was called the Kahi Nub, Golden Earth. So Kana Nub, which means the Golden Earth, is a knob, is a lump, a protuberance. So yeah, she's a navel. So here, yeah, they're saying it's a golden floor of the earth, the mouth of the Nile. Canopus was bitten by a poisonous snake and died. And the star that rose while he was dedicating it. And then you're on a quest. Argonaut. There's a ship that carried the Argonauts in their quest for the Golden Fleece. Yeah, the people that are in the Argonaut ship don't have their Golden Fleece. Yeah, and they're saying here that in Egypt it was near the horizon, so it made it look reddish. So it's a reddish place. So the etymology of Kahi is Ophaio. So it's a snake, a serpent. So it's a snake navel, just like the stone with the serpent around it. So yeah, so it's the snake, and phi meaning snake makes sense because like golden ratio is like a snake. It's like a twirling snake. So I guess that's where that whole imagery comes from. So the interesting thing about Canopus, which is at the southern hemisphere, it's at its highest point on December 27th, which is very close to the winter solstice. So it's also called the city of Vidu, which has to do with the constellation in the sky, called the Nunki. There we go again, the Nunki. So it's the queen of heaven with that city, the Eridu, Mesopotamian city, but it's also a river. So they also did festivals by its heliacal rising. So those are really important stars when they're doing that. Has to do with the magnetic south. Canopus was had the wobble of the axis, so it's basically on the axis, right? So yeah, it's super important, um, especially in ancient times. So it's left the red giant branch and it's now turning into a blue loop. It has increased effective temperature. It is over 1,000 times more luminous than the sun. And no star closer than Canopus is more luminous than it. Okay, so it's been in the sky for epochs over the past 4 million years. Okay, so this is a really important star. So they prayed to Sirius and Canopus for particular to have good fortune. It has to do with your sheep and your rams because it was a warning that something was coming. It's also to do with the great birds. You can go through all this, the old man and the South Pole, so back to the old man and the sea. There's another goddess there which has the X's in it. I can't even pronounce it. So yeah, so if you want to go through all that and do some digging on it, but that's like, yeah, it's super important. So here, yeah, old man in the South Pole, rising verdict stage. So yep, it's the old man thing that really gets me going because I'm like, okay, this is super important. Ernest Hemingway knew all the ancient mystery school knowledge, and his brother also started to build an island off of Bimini, I think, or Cuba, and he called it New Atlantis. So they know all the ancient history of the world and also knew that this event was coming. On December 21st, 2024, you can see here how Canopus is on the South Pole, and it comes right across, and it's actually got Venus right in the center. You know, everything's about Venus, the Nunki. So yeah, this is pretty amazing that this is all lining up at the same time. There's also Mars on the other side of the planet that kind of ends up lining up with Venus. So Mars has this beehive cluster right on Cancer. Mars is right on the beehive cluster, which is, Mars has to do with war and stuff. And that beehive cluster, Cancer, has to do with the summer solstice. The summer solstice is Cancer, and the winter solstice is Capricorn. But the whole thing about Cancer is that you have a shell on. It's kind of like your golden fleece. It's your protection. That's what it's relating to. So it's also called the scarab and snapping turtle. It has to do with the emblem of immortality. So yeah, it's definitely your golden fleece. Canopus happens to be right in the Argo Navis ship, which is now called Carina. But this keyhole nebula is right on the horizon on 2024, and this is super important. So yeah, it's at its highest point or close to it around the winter solstice. Here's the axis mundi. It's this is all with Hermetic knowledge. It's like the pillar. It's the world tree. You know that all. If you look into this, you can see that all the Hermetic knowledge all has to do with the. It's like they have a kind of like flat Earth, and then the trees down the center. And actually, I think the whole the dome thing is just like the Milky Way. It creates a dome, and right on the winter solstice, there's a dome over the planet. Okay, so here is the can for Canopus. It means reed, pipe. Remember I said pipe before? It also means a small boat. Container or vessel is a can. So, and it's also the toilet. Yeah. So Canopus, this store. Major things are going to happen with this star, okay? Because it has like a magnetic purpose, okay? So Canopus, and then Canopus is to work, to labor. It's food, mastery, to have power over. Okay, so it's a can, and it's also food. So it's corn in the can. So I'm just, I'm just like, I don't like the sounds of that. It's really not doing well with me. But anyhow, you can only laugh about it because it's pretty funny. Here we have Cabelli again, and I just wanted to put in here because she's Magna Mother. She's related with wild music and wine. They castrated her shepherd consort, Attis, like he was castrated. She's the mountains, the towns, the cities. So there she all is in Wikipedia. Now she's named Magna Mother, Mag. Okay, so it's Maga. It's all the same thing. It means your soul, your mind, your spirit, your great soul, high-minded, abundant, great, powerful, loftiness, greatness of mind and heart. Okay, so yeah, so the whole Magna movement is about your soul. That's basically it. So if you think it's otherwise, you're not awakened enough yet. So here we have how she's represented by lions. Okay, it's all about the lions and her chariots. And I just wanted to show you that. It has to do with the lions, and it also has to do with the bull. The lion and the bull, because the lion is the sun, okay, and the bull is the whole Taurus, the whole bipolar magnetic pull kind of toroidal field. Okay, so we're always working with the two, and we can see this through a lot of symbolism. We see this through, you just Google lion and the bull, and it's all there in our modern day imagery. So it's being told that this is something we should be paying attention to, but we don't, because we're not educated. Nobody's telling us anything about this, right? So to do all the research, it takes freaking, I'm telling you, thousands of hours. It's 3 years it's taken me to put this together, but it's all in front of us. Once you know the story, you cannot unsee the story. Okay, it's everywhere, and that kind of makes you feel like you're in the Twilight Zone, which is, really, for me, I just want to give people the knowledge. You can do whatever you want with it. Think it's crazy, think it's never going to happen, but at least it's in you. You have heard it, and you can hold it in the back of your mind. I forgot to mention when the girl and the bull in New York City. Just look at the street sign beside it. It's called Evacuation Day. Ha ha ha. Okay, so Facebook symbol actually comes from this Freemason logo called the Tubal Cain. It's the brotherhood of the quest. The end goal of all who joined was to have peace, unity, wisdom, love on earth. A simple goal to help place an end to the endless wars and human misery, and have plague over planets for thousands of years, have plagued our planet for thousands of years via the coordination and efforts. So blah blah blah. It's Tubal Cain was like a smith, a goldsmith, and I was listening to this anthropologist talk about how they found that he was, relating to Hathor. There's this mountain that was supposed to be in the Bible that, I don't know, I have to post the video, but they found it in this mountain, and it relates to the Bible, but it's the Hathor temple, and they were making tons of white powder in there, and this is what Tubal Cain was doing. He was making monatomic gold. Now that would be considered the manna, maybe, for some souls that can't ascend because they don't have the phoenix, so they need the monatomic gold. So this is, I know, really way out there for some people. I've never heard about this stuff. So this goldsmith was actually called bakers, but then they're saying they're not bakers of bread; they were goldsmiths. So this is the showbread. So it's just funny with the bakers and the bread and the breadcrumbs with the Q movement. It's all going back to Tubal Cain. Okay, so Nova Mesta is a town, and it's a land above the water. Nova Mesta, and it's basically the city of Situlus, which is the city of these Kumbha pots. Okay, so it relates to Isis because she's always got the pot, as well. So this whole city has symbolism to Isis. And I just wanted to show you that they're called for the holy water. Okay, yeah, I know what's in the holy water now. Yeah, it's all devoted to Isis. It's the Kumba pot. Yeah, it's not what people think it is, and yeah, it's crazy. But guess who happened to be born in this city? You won't believe it. She just happens to be the first lady. Melania Trump is the first lady of the United States, and she happens to be born in this city that worships Isis with these Kumba pots. And the thing is, it's Nova Mesta, right? So Mesta is actually the passage of the sheep. Okay, it's also the Canada. Canada and Mesta are related in the wording, and yeah, it's the passage of the sheep. So yeah, pretty funny. Nice name for the town with the Kumba pots. Now, Melania Trump's maiden name is called Canav, and the Canav family have ties to this town called Knossos, which is like Gnostic. It's like spelt the same way as Gnostic. And also, there's this Ameshaha is related to her family name, and Kanawa Awas. And I'm going to show you, I did a dig on these words and what they mean. First is the town, Gnosis. It's a very, very old town that is on the island of Crete, I believe. And they did have a religion there thousands of years ago. It was all women high priestess, and the religion basically worshipped bulls. Okay, so we're back to the bull again. And this is one of the ancient temples, and then you can see the bull in there with his golden horns. So that's the silver gate, right, in the sky. So it has to be, this temple was a snake goddess sanctuary. Okay, she's the great mother goddess, and she's represents snakes. Well, we know Isis is the same, right? What's crazy is this religion goes back 7,000 BC, and there they're showing her here, you know, with her lions on the side of her, flanked by lions. So this is the same goddess. It's the Magna Mother. And the Gnosis towns established this sea empire. So it's almost like it's going back to Atlantean times. This is where it gets fun, because I listened to Melania speaking on here, and they asked her, what would you want to do if you could go anywhere? And she goes, oh, I'd like to go to an island. You know, and when you start seeing all the coincidences of what she's representing, then here's the island, right? So yeah, it's pretty funny. So Maya also represents the eldest of the Pleiades, the seven nymphs of the constellation Pleiades. She was this shy goddess that dwelt alone in a cave near the peaks of Mount Cabelli. We go again. So this Magna Mother is connected to the Pleiades, and which is in the Taurus's shoulder. There's a cluster, the Pleiades, you know, cluster. It's the seven sisters. Is in the Taurus's shoulder, the left shoulder. Okay, so this was related to her. Her last name was the Hamashiach. Okay, which actually means Christ. Okay, so can't make this up. Yeah, and it also means Hamashiach also means the Anointed One. John 1:41. Anybody that wants to check that out. So yeah, so there you go. This is like more than being in the Twilight Zone. It is the Twilight Zone. Okay, so all you cute people like this one because it relates to hamburger. So the Ammashaha was the first religion for the shaman religion. And this goes back to the city of Hamburger. Well, about Hamburger surname. It's the Hamburger surname, which is where the city was called Hamburger. So, or Hamburg, sorry, not hamburger. Too many hamburgers. Everybody knows this post, right? With with the misspelling of the 1,000 hamburgers. Oh my God. Yeah, this is a pretty funny game. So the name Melania, the name derives from ancient Greek melas. There we go again. So it's your golden fleece. But mela means golden fleece. But here her name means blackness, darkness, clad of black, obscure. And with the caves and everything, it's because you can only activate your golden fleece if you're in darkness and you don't get into the thunder and lightning, and you don't see all these things in the sky. You have to go into a cave or in some dark place so you can be able to maintain your golden fleece. So this was really funny with her birthday. There she's sitting there in green, and they're all like worshiping her with the yellow roses. So it's like the golden heaven, because we've figured out that roses means heaven, and then they're all yellow. So it's the golden city, and there she's sitting there. So yeah, this is not a joke, guys. Mela in French, or mel, is honey in French. So that's where you get the golden from. And then her son, her real son, is giving her, she's got like a black cube, and then she's in black and white. So then all the elite to get together, and there's Burkle doing the hand signal while she's got the fire, she's got the pyramid up. And Melania, they're all laughing, and Melania's right in the center. And then Hillary Clinton calls her Jezebel last week, which all relates to this goddess again. And Hillary Clinton was referred to Jezebel before because she was the one that had the symbol before, and with on her family crest with the pine tree. But now she's not Jezebel, and Melania is. And then here's Harry with his Freemason symbol with her, like basically saying, "Yep, she's the queen. She's the queen of all this, and I'm with her." And she's got the black and white on, the bipolar. There's the Freemason symbols, and then the queen knows too. So it's like it's a joke. So this is where you really enter the Twilight Zone. So her son, when she's born, is right on the tail of, or the head of, the sea monster. And she's right beside the Nun star. There's another Nun star. There's a few of them. And she happens to be right on that, which is, the high priestess. And then she's got Mars right on the Pleiades, which is the war planet. And Saturn and Venus is right all there in the cluster too. And then on the Golden Gate, the moon, which represents her, is right on the point of the arrow, which is like super significant. And then God planet Jupiter is right like at her knees in Virgo, which is the Mother Mary. So the sea monster is represented as the whale sometimes, or the octopus. But here we have Melania doing a shot when she was a lot younger, when she was a model with the whale. So this. It's like, how many models is that? Maybe it's a coincidence, but it seems a little strange considering her birth signs. So this star called Kalat Nunu is basically the official in change of the pasturing. So she's the goddess that changes the pasture of sheep. Sounds like, harvest time. So if the pyramid be regarded as typical of Osiris, he who makes time, and the hyperbolic, solid symbolic of Isis, velocity inversely as time, then the Egyptian pyramid and Burmese hyperbolic temple, which is like the hyperbola of the torus, both begin being typical of gravity, may be purposed to represent Osiris and Isis, husband and wife, brother and sister, both of divine origin. Okay, so then it says the obelisk is the number 49, which happens to be the Venus square, with the pyramid and the hyperbolic solid is symbolic of both time and velocity in the small distance only in the surface of the earth. So the obelisk may have been regarded as Horus. which is the sun god. So the first picture she takes, looking forward to the memories we'll make in our new home, happens to be the obelisk, which represents Horus, the sun god. We will never forget. And if you look at the backward jacket, it looks like the obelisk. And 9/11 adds up to 23. So it's the date of the pain. Here she's at the Kennedy Center, and they presented her with a black stone. Happens to be a square black stone. So the memorial for the Twin Towers in 9/11 are also, the souls were in black stone square. So this is important because this black square city is the Golden City. So if anybody's never noticed that the Trump Towers is in a direct alignment where the Twin Towers were, the Washington Gate, and Statue of Liberty. Now, Statue of Liberty ends up being Isis. Okay, it's because all the symbolism around her is all the same as Isis, and so she's Venus. Oh, and I have in some of my other videos the Trump Towers. He has the 21 trees on the side that looks like a V pointing downward, which could be the alchemic symbol for water. Also looks like a spear going down the building. And here's Melania in a black cube looking at opioid symbol. It's a symbolism for opioid overdose, I think. But anyhow, she's in a black cube. I just thought that was a little relevant as well. So they're saying here the name of Kybele was interchangeable with her title of Great Goddess, Mother of the Gods. She's in control of justice. Inanna and Mat before her. It's like they're all interchangeable. Centuries later, the Virgin Mary is seen enthroned in the same way with a lion's head and arms on the throne. So, and Demeter, the third goddess, they're all aspects, and the flight of the dove. So it's all to do with Judgment Day. And here we have her, representing the Virgin Mary because she's got the green dress on for fertility. And she's got the baby in her arms. Okay, so in this aspect, they're saying great Magna Mother was a great mother. Saturn was her father. Noise, there's pipes, cymbals. Howling, mad. They were mad, throwing themselves about, many frantically, and her temple was open not by hands but by prayers. And sitting there and touching were sacrificials of the hearts. So yeah, it's definitely Judgment Day. And another important fact here, it says none entered who tasted like garlic. And there she is as the Queen of Hearts, all decked out. Again, a green dress for fertility on Christmas Day. Unfortunately, priests that worshipped her ended up being eunuchs. And we have here also the pine tree again. So the pine tree is a big symbolism. I mentioned in my last video that I thought Baron was, part of this. I think he is the sun god. There she is with the tree with him. You notice Trump's not around. It's just her and her son. And with the pine tree. Now the Eye of Horus has two aspects. The left eye represents the abstract aesthetics information controlled by the right brain. Okay, and then the right eye represents the concrete factual information controlled by the left brain. So it deals with words and letters and numbers. So yeah, so our bodies are like an X. So left controls the right side of your body, and the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. So the whole Fly Like an Eagle song with Space Jam and Seal, he's showing his right eye, and that's because he's using his left brain of logic, and then the rabbit is using his left eye with his emotional brain, which is the right brain. And that's super important that you stay really logical through this time and not get your emotions getting all sucked into all the drama. Do check out this video of this song after this video that you're watching, because there's somebody comes out of this white ship, and the number 45 on his chest, and then also they show the number 23. So everything is in that video. So this is a little weird, taking a picture of Baron with just his one eye, the right eye, and the numbers add up to 23, and or break them down to 5, because 5 is Venus, or 23 is the pain, right? So there you go, it's right there in front of you. And here she is with her Christmas decorations, and she did the red trees. Now the red trees represents the blood. There was symbolism before, but the blood going on the pine trees for the sacrifices back to Magna Mother. So that is why the trees were red for Christmas. And there she is again with Baron. Oh yeah, and she's standing in front of here with all these guys, and up here it says the pentagon or pentastar up here on the top. The pentagon star on top of the pyramid. You know, the number 23 breaks down to 5, 5 for Venus. And I believe they went to China, and then you see Melania's here, but also these horns. They've got the horns on their heads, some of the costumes, so this represents her as well. Okay, this was a good one when she went up to the wilderness, and she went down Snake River, and there was elk antlers, and she took pictures with the mountains, because the mountains represent Magna Mother. So and then there's a gateway with all the horns. So it's like that's almost like, yeah, it's the silver gate basically, the horns with all around the gateway. So yeah, all the symbolism is there. Once you know the symbolism, it's kind of hard not to see it. It's kind of in your face. So yeah, she's the Holy Mother. The Holy Mother Peak is the Magna Mother. Yeah, the mountain peaks is all related to her. Or this is where the Tibetan, yeah, Mount Everest and everything. It all relates to symbolism to the Magna Mother. And of course, they had to do a beautiful photo shot of her with the mountain behind her. This is, when you start to know the symbolism, they always do the photo shots so perfectly. And here's the Christmas one, which has got the antlers, right on top of her head, the reindeer supposedly, but yeah, it's the horns. Yeah, and she also posted them all around her head, so yeah, it's there. Okay, so this carousel has the wings, the bird, but also has a symbol that looks like the phi symbol. Okay, I just want you to make sure you remember this, because I'm going to show you what that actually is. And then she's standing down here right in the center of all these people, which is just normal for First Lady stuff, but there's too many coincidences that all relate to this Queen of Heaven. It's impossible for it to not be her, especially, with all the symbolism with Trump being Thoth. Here she's posting with the poppies. Now, poppies go back to Diana, Princess Diana, basically. But I've realized what the poppies are. Just think, what are poppies, right? It's opium. Canopus, the star. The black navel is the navel of the earth. It's a canopus. Yeah, it's opium. Another post of the Washington Monument again, Osiris's or Horus's symbolism. And then the oak tree, that's with same thing when they did at Princess Diana's funeral. It's all done with oak trees. It represents the Magna Mother. So here's like pagan worship for October. We have the Feast of Divine Wisdom is between October 9th and 11th. And then October 13th is the Knights of Templars Remembrance Day. So these are important dates. And then, of course, you always have, like, close to Halloween. These are really important. It's like for the dead, right? It's all celebrations. Through the Celtic New Year's was all around Halloween. So when she went to Egypt last year, it was around that same date, October 12th. So that's interesting. And then there's tons of pictures of her in front of the big lion head sphinx, right? So yeah, it's the lion. Everything is about the sky. Even this picture with all these women wearing these peacock skirts. This is because the peacock is a constellation. Okay, so This is what you, once you understand to read the sky and look at the sky, you realize the elites are using the symbolism of the sky at all times. You got to remember there's cultures that actually believe that there were sky gods. So, this whole thing about the sky, which basically we don't even ever look up anymore. We don't understand the sky. It's not part of our education, but it's really important. So here we have Saturn. Saturn is the hexagon. It ends up being the cube, but it's always this, pale blue that happens to be turning more gold at the time. Right at this time, it's going into a gold color. And there she is, dressed in that color, Tiffany blue. It's very, very important. JFK, his wife, always wore pale Tiffany blue as well, Jackie. So here's the rabbit with the looking glasses. Is he looking down the rabbit hole, this rabbit? Yeah, the rabbit hole is not what you think it is, and I'm going to explain to you what it is. It's pretty crazy. And here she's having with Ben and Ben's wife. What's the chances that they're both wearing the same color? You know, you really think that was just an accident? I don't think so. And it's because they're representing Saturn. Saturn is very important in all this. And here she posted Be Best. This Be Best is all about the bees, okay? And it's kind of that same color again, that aqua blue color, but it's the egg. And look at, there's little wings. It's sitting on things that have winged beings or winged humans with wings. They're angels, right? So, and then she posted this the other day, the look of life expectancy or manslaughter. It's like, right? Like who would post that? In the Baytown Sun, this is Cerberus Bay. This is a god that, here it is, represents the same religion of the Egyptian religion. It's all about the bees. Abyss is bees, okay? Anyhow, it's all there, and this goes back to Atlantis, this worshipping of the Cerberus Bay. So she just posted it like from the newspaper. It's like I caught on right away. Okay, so we got the lion with the Cerberus again, with the city on top of the head, or the pot on top of the head, and then we have the horns again, with looks like the sun in the middle of the horns. So this all, see how it's Greek, it's not Egyptian, but they're all worshiping the same religion. It just got passed down through time, and then eventually Christianity kind of amalgamated it into their religion, but not so obvious that they were still worshiping all this religion, because it all comes from one religion. Okay, so this is Melania. It also means Melissa is Deborah. It's Aldebaran. The by Pleiades. It's the bee. It's the queen bee. Okay, is the Pleiades that's in the shoulder of the Taurus. And there she's went and she talked with the USS Wasps. I was like, oh, here we go. This is the wasp for the fig tree, right? And then the jacket she's wearing kind of looks like bee pollen to me. Anyhow, I know it's a little out there, but it's pretty funny. So here we have these kids. This is all about robots now, and Be Best, and it's the bees, always the Be Best on robots. The AI path is basically going back to the tree of life. You're not eating from the tree of knowledge, you are becoming absorbed by it. So this is why the tooth paths are, one is like you transform and you're dead and you transform into something else, and the other one you just get consumed. And here she's showing with Mrs. Abi. Oh, that's that's another thing to do with this religion, the Abi. It's a month of the Zuism religion. And also they're touching the little fish because it all has to do with the abyss, the watery abyss, and kind of like Atlantis symbolism. Here's some important Egyptian dates. September 13th is lightning and fire ceremony for the departed souls. September 19th is the Feast of Thoth, that is Trump. And September 21st is also the autumn equinox, second harvest. So these are important dates to just have in your mind. I knew she was going to post something about Egypt on this day because it was Friday the 13th, which is Friday is Venus Day because it's Vendredi, like all the days of the week go with the planets, and Friday is Venus. So I knew she was going to post something. And of course, it was an Egyptian post, right, for the Egyptian holiday. I spoke way earlier in the video about the Zuism religion, and it all refers to I am, and then, she's standing there with the whole I am sign. Okay, and here's in the Bible, John 10:9. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. So this is the one gate. Yeah, so, but there's two gates. That's the thing. There's two gates. Then Melania posted with the gate and the five-pointed star. Not a coincidence. So Kibela is also associated with bees swarming with life, another symbol coming from Greek. Her priestesses, like those of Artemis and Persephone, were called Melissa or Melina or Millennia or bees. She's the goddess of gates, doors. She's also, yeah, of Ishtar. So basically, Mel means honey. Okay, it's like the honey pollen. So she's also represented by walls. Okay, and that's because of the cities. Once you're in, you can't get out, depending on which one you're going to go to. That's where you stay. So there's no crossing over. That's a border. So here we have Matthew 24:1. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So yeah, it's like it's a lot of deceitful stuff going on here, but it's in the end you get to choose your path in your soul. Here's the trumpet that these are really far, long time ago, 2018 or 2015, and she's posted about the rose. This is before she was Flotus. Here she's posting about the pepper goddess, so that's pretty funny. It looks a bit like the missing Osiris part. And here's the rose again for heaven. And this is like 2015, so she was already putting the symbolism out there way back then. Yeah, and then lots of sunrises and sunsets because it's the morning star or the evening star. That's why it's always sunrise, sunset. It's because Venus has the two things. It's morning star, evening star. So it depends on what path you're taking. So here is no day shall be erased you from your memory. Okay, yeah. So this because basically some people get to keep their memory, other people don't get to keep their memory. Okay, so the Queen of Heaven, Kebela, she's represented by the constellation Cassiopeia. Okay, so opia sounds like poppies. That's why they use the poppy thing. She has a daughter named Andromeda. Okay, so that's a Dromedon constellation or galaxy. Here it's interesting. She's in this chair. They say she's being tortured, but some have her as holding a mirror for her vanity. So it goes back to the, mirror, mirror on the wall kind of thing. Okay, so yeah, Cassiopeia is represented by a W or an M. Now, W is the 23rd letter in the alphabet. It has the V, the two V's, which is W, but they're really V's. But it's the W. It's the left side of you, the right side of you, the right and left. And then it's the letter M, which is number 13. So there it is in the sky. It looks like a W just sitting there. And we have Andromeda down below. And that's Andromedon, the little red disc there. That's the galaxy Andromedon. But so that's her daughter. Now, it's weird, they've picked up this radio source from that constellation, so there's sound coming from there, with frequency above 1 GH hertz. So, yeah, there's a frequency coming from exact location of the Queen of Heaven's chair. So, this star is relative to the position of your heart. So, it's mythological Queen Cassiopeia. So it's pretty weird that, you know, it's all to do with your heart. It's the judgment of your heart. That's why she's called the Queen of Hearts. But then down here, some of them called them Darth Ekarty. So it's like Darth Vader almost, you know, like this is where they get the mythos from in these movies. I thought this was interesting on the Kabbalah tree. There's a symbol on the left-hand side pillar here. It's the number 23 with the water symbol. So there's the pain right there on the tree of life. It, you know, 23 adds to 5, which is Venus. And this I thought was cool. It really shows like how the lightning comes down between the two paths. So it's like a crisscross. So it's always that that way that it is created. It comes through one side of your body. This is what I was saying. Like your brain goes from one side over to the other side of your body, controls the other side. This is just a quick thing with the Essenes. These people believed in how to, you know, protect themselves with their shields, and they had these crystals on their chest. That was their heart breastplate. So I just thought that was interesting, and I'm going to look into which these crystals all are. I know some of them, but I need to really take a look at them and figure out what they are. And then the chrysanthemum, the golden flower crystals. It's like a sheath. It protects you. See, the crystals protect you. It's a sheath. Yeah, it diversions of devoting to gold. Yeah, so yeah, there's a protection in there with the crystals. Okay, I'm going to get into phosphorus now. Now, phosphorus ends up being fluorescent. It's also made by urine. You can read all through all this. I don't want to make the video too much longer because it's so long. But yeah, fascinating. It's the miraculous bearer of light. Okay, so just remember this because it's all going to tie into the story at the end when I show you the story in the constellation. So, yeah, fluorescent molecules, phosphorus. Yeah, so it basically glows in the dark. Has to do with your DNA too. Yeah, there's a whole thing with the phosphorus with your DNA, but go through and read it all and check it out, see exactly what it is. I'm not a scientist. The thing about phosphorus, it can change from different stages, solid, liquid, or gas. Has fluorines in it, which is like what shungite has, the crystal, and has lots of allotropes. So yeah, so there's definitely something with this, and I pretty much figured out what they're going to be using it for, and when. And I just thought it was interesting. This symbol represents it, which is like the pyramid up, the pyramid down, which is the Star of David, ends up being the Star of David. Gotta love etymology. Heaven means to cover. It's like a chemise, it's like a shirt. Yeah, so it's called Shamayam. Shamayam? Shamayam. So it's like a shirt, yeah. That's what it means. A state of bliss, heavenly place. So I found this site where the periodic tables have these little symbols, and these are all Hermetic symbols that are with these, you know, elements. So I just find it interesting that this happens to be, you know, the pyramid is the bringer of light. So the bringer of light also is, here we have the pentals. So it ends up being number 5 again, the pentagons, the P necogen. It's also the Roman numeral number 5, which, hello, that's, you know, Venus. Okay, so what's interesting about P and N, which is phosphorus and nitrogen, has something to do with your memory. The mnemonic, it creates memory, okay? Portion of air is unsuitable for breathing, but it's also the name of pentals in Greek. Every time you go back, all the answers are in the ancient history because they kind of showed us the way. There's a path there if you go back and research. So if you're around this black light for too long, you get kind of dizzy. It makes you kind of dizzy. So this is interesting. It's just has always to do with phosphorus, with things illuminating. So these kids were doing this experiment. I just thought it's interesting that she said that you get dizzy in the black light. Okay, so this chromium really with this symbol was like, ah, there's the skull with the wings. So I thought that was it's chroma meaning color. Okay, so yeah, so this it ends up making you colorful. And the atomic number is number 24. Well, that's the year that I've picked, right? Number 24. So in Greek mythology, they're basically saying that this ends up being the colored body. Well, what's the colored body? It's your rainbow aura, right? So yeah, there you go. It's chromium, and the number 24 is important because that's the date that they're going to do this. So it's just interesting to see somebody posted on Q with the skull but with the 24. So that's the chromium, right? So that's your rainbow body, your ascension body. And here's just showing the chromosome, which is like chrominium, but this is your DNA. So the chrome is like your rainbow body in your chromosome. And it's always the X, right? This is what this event is. It's the X event because basically it comes down to your DNA. Yeah, Madonna knows it's the X event. It's the one-eyed X event. And you see on her front of her skirt, she's got the big Q with the crown on it. That is the ring of Cassiopeia because the constellation looks like a diamond ring. And then you see the snake running through that makes it look like the Q. So chromium minerals end up being like rubies, and then they're rubies and emeralds, which is where you get the whole Wizard of Oz mythos from, and the Yellow Brick Road, and the god behind the curtain. This is basically the whole Wizard of Oz is this story of Judgment Day. And this stuff I find funny when you see that there's a Q carbon that has to do with diamonds. So this goes with Madonna's show. Go check out her show. The lyrics are crazy. It's basically telling you the whole event. You know, if you have eyes to see. This is interesting about the Q carbon. It says diamonds, when exposed even in low levels of energetic radiation, because of its stronger negative electron affinity. I'm no scientist, but it says it glows more. So there's the glow of your body, I guess, when this Q carbon gets exposed to radiation. So there's this stuff called Exion. It works with magnetics, and it creates some type of spin. And so I think this is going to be used. Honestly, like they think, yeah, it has something to do with Chernobyl disaster. Read through it if you have a scientific mind, but this has got my senses up here that this is relating to it, especially because it starts with X. I was just like, okay, and it has to do with magnets. So here we have the carbon, it's the crown, and the fluorines again. So yeah, that has to do with the phosphorus, right? So yeah, and it's just interesting that it adds up to 33. It's like a Freemason number. So it's like the Enlightenment is through your whole carbon body. Yeah, it's going to be quite the ride. Okay, so here's the Golden Gate. It's kind of on the side, but I just wanted to show how you get there. You get off the horse, which is Pegasus. You go, this is your path if you're ascending, okay? You go to the Golden Gate. You actually pick up some arrows as you go. So that way you can fight the dragon or the snake, you know, and not let it eat you. And then because you have your shield, you pick up your shield and your swords and you fight it. And then that's called scutum is your shield. Then you go to the left. We always go to the left, to the left, to the left. Everyone go to the left. This is the eagle, Aquila. And Aquila has like the needle in its mouth. And then you go up into Denab and to Cygnus X1. is there, which is like a black hole, which Rush sings about, Cygnus X1, the whole trip up here. This is it. That's what they're talking about. So you can see the arrow here. You can see all the birds. The birds are all the souls that have their phoenix flame still. And then you can see here, there's Capricorn. Venus is right in Capricorn. That's the sheep's gate. So the ones that gets, come up the other way through rapture goes to the right. You get there and you end up going on another path. But and then you have the purple rain coming out of the Kumbha pot that will wash away everything at the end of it all. This is phosphorus that's coming down through this purple rain. So yeah, it's fluorescent. So yeah, it's quite the journey. And here you can see the flaming phoenix because it's on fire. So the birds ascend, and then you get your arrow. All the birds, they get their arrows because they're not floating up. You're basically staying on the ground, and you're activating your DNA through your 7 lamps chakras, through your oil, through your kundalini. And you do that by staying grounded on earth, not floating up to the ship. So this is crazy. The phoenix, a popular name for the star was the bright star of the skiff. This is the Alpha Phoenix, I guess is the biggest star. And it's also the Kumbha. There we go, the Kumbha again. Yeah, it's always the Kumbha. The meaning, the firebird. Yeah, it's basically your flame in your soul, which is the most valuable thing on the universe. So here we have with the arrows and all the birds, but it's talking about Apollo killing Cyclops with the arrow. The Cyclops being the Cat's Eye Nebula. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. We see that. That's Thoth. That's Trump. Scutum is the shield. Okay, and then we see the peacock feathers, and it's all purple, and it's called the wild duck cluster. But over here, there's really an old picture of the shield with the cross on it, and then the cross of the sword. You see, it represents the cross. So to be able to keep your phoenix flame and take the left path, the magic of the dark room experiences is after the 3 days of darkness. There is so much building up. So 3 days you're not building up anything, and so you need the first. They say that in the Bible, 3 days of darkness, and then it triggers. Goes so far as says decoding your DNA is initiated, which causes an attraction of cosmic particles from the universe, decoding it in the form of sound, light, knowledge, and realization. So that's crazy. If there's some other stuff going on at the same time and you're staying in the dark, I think, this is why the whole mythos of always going into the caves and stuff. So by the time you get to 10 days of darkness, you're going into hyperspace, beyond third dimension and realms of time. This is just from being in the dark. Okay, so it's amazing how the body works, but this fascinates me. So this is really what you want to do to be able to get your soul to rise and go through the sun and be able to take your shield and go the left-hand path. Here's a story called about the mountain of fire and the salamander birds. So it's all about related to the phoenix who dies in the fire, is later reborn from the ashes. And they're basically saying that there's these birds that go to this place they believe has magical powers at this place, and this bird sits there, and one of them dies, but they're fat. These birds are really attracted to this location. So there's this famous song called "The Nightingale in Berkeley Square." A famous singer sang it, but it's basically because the bird is in the square, in the cube, but it's still singing, and it's in the dark. So it's all the story about the phoenix, staying alive. So here we're getting Greek mythos with the Philomela that gets turned into a nightingale, and then they're saying the nightingale is often called the Philomel. So the phi is Q, phi, and then mela is the honey. So yeah, which they're saying is basically your phoenix. So there you see, it's all there in the mythos. You just have to understand the story, and then you can see it. Okay, the Zooism called their months between December and January was called Abi, which is, you know, the bee again. Haha. It's called the Great One. It's Enki, which I'm saying that's Thoth, that's Trump, and it's represented by the age of the constellation Aquarius. The crab is Cancer, which we know that's the shield, and then the eagle is Aquila, which is your bird that eventually leaves the left-hand path. It's Aquila. So then we have Ziza, which falls between January and February. The constellation of the head of Draco, and I guess it's like the happy heaven time. There's a swallow and the crown. Yeah, so this is after the event. Okay, so this periodic symbol is magnesium. Magnesium with the all-seeing eye. Now I'm going to explain why. It's also the atomic number 12. Yeah, it's always 12 with the these religious, the Zooism. It's all based on the zodiac, right? The 12. So yeah, the all-seeing eye, it happens to be this black magnesium, which also is manganese. This magnesium, manganese, the whole history about it all, you know, the names being split in two. But if you notice here, it's the gate with the both in it. You know, it's God's gate. It's also magnesium nigra. It's this black stone again. It's a magnet. Okay, so this is this magnetic stone that I've been talking about, which is Canopus, is the magnetic stone. She is that star is magnetic. Okay, it's the magnetic pull on the planet. So it's also a depolarizer. And what I found here was interesting, these carvings. They carved the bulls, well, it's the Taurus field, it's this whole event, and they used it with this manganese. They carved it with manganese. So they're trying to tell us that there was some magnetic pull with this stone, right? These ancient people, they were trying to tell us. But guess what it's called? It's called the lodestone. The lodestone. I couldn't believe it when I found this. I was like, no way. It's a flesh magnet. This freaking stuff sticks to your skin and it creates a magnetic pull, and it's activated when there's more lightning. Okay, so yeah, this is crazy. So basically, metal sticks to this stone. So if you got this stuff stuck on you, this metal's going to attract to you. So, or yeah, or pick you up. So it's called the lodestone. And so Isaac Newton had one. All these people had it. Down here, it talks about it was like a parcel of needles, and it looked like the devil was in them when it was dancing the needles. Okay, so it's called the lodestone. It's the way stone. Okay, it's the lodestar, old name for the pole star that leads the way. Yeah, it leads the way, all right. The person or the beast of burden. It's the water, of course, the street. It's the way to go. Strong drink taken is when you're loaded, right? It's heavy on your heart. It's like, you know, so yeah, this whole thing, the load, the burden to follow. Your livelihood is a load, right? The lodestone. The mother lode. Yep. Okay, so in German, Loden means the coarse woolen cloth. So it's like your thick woolly fleece. And then in Welsh, it's mine, but I looked it up and it's basically means sheep and goats. So yeah, this whole lodestar is to pick up a bunch of sheep. So you can watch this video. Mike Pence says lodestar probably about 3 or 4 times. He's always saying it. So yeah, they're telling us. At McCain's funeral, the lodestar, the lodestar. Yeah, now we know what the lodestar is. It's the friggin' magnet that pulls people up to the heavens. It's the journey, the way, the course stone, the leading stone. Yeah, magnetic fields. surrendering with lightning bolts, surrounding with lightning bolts. It's this lodestone. Look, all the friggin' metal attaches to it. Now, if it's sticking to human flesh, this ash, stone ash, like say, because it's volcanic, right? So if volcanic ash spews everywhere and lands on people, you're going to be a friggin' magnet. And this is crazy. This constellation, it's called Anidia. It's a vacuum. Yeah, it's just above the ship, the Carnia ship, or it used to be called Argos Navis, like Argonauts. So looking into Alice's looking glass, you see the whole story. It's like, it blows my mind. You can see the red path that I've created here. That is basically the path to hell. That will put you back in a smart city with basically your soul, your flame, your phoenix taken out of you. So this is the path. Okay, so you go into the Golden Gate where the sun is, and the black in the lagoon. You get stung by the dragon. You go up, you get weighed by the scales. Then you become a mad dog, and Centaurus basically spears you, and he has a little fake Jesus cross there. You think you're going to heaven, but you're not, because the star on the left of the cross, the Southern Cross, is a lying star. Then you go into the keyhole, which is called the Little Man. Then you go into Argo Nace's ship, which is now called the Carnia ship, and then you get down, you get pulled all the way up by this magnetic star called Canopus. So you can see these magnetic field clouds. They're like blue with white surrounding them. These are magnetic clouds. So this is what's causing this magnetic Canopus to pull. You also have the vacuum above. I circled it by white. That's a vacuum. And then you get pushed up onto the Pupus deck, which is actually called the poop deck. Oh my God, I can't believe, like, this. It's just too funny. It's surreal. And then you can see that you're being pulled by the wolf, and then you follow the rabbit, and I'll show you what happens after that. So if you see above the ship, there's this pot. That's their kumba pot, which they're taking something and putting in there, and I'll explain what that is. And then you can see the lion above Virgo, which is the queen. She's there. So you can also see the green snake that's beside her. That's the Hydra snake. And also up in Cancer, which is the beehive, the little yellow beehive that I made there. That's the beehive for the pot of Kumba. So basically, this Carnia was called the Argo Novice constellation. It was massive. It was huge. They broke it up into pieces. But it goes right back to Sumerian and Egyptian constellation called the Boat of Osiris. Okay, so yeah, and then they broke it all up later on so people wouldn't get suspicious looking at this big, massive friggin' ship with a wolf pulling it. You're going to be like, what the heck is that doing in the sky, right? So yeah, it's the wolf of, here he is, Hermanabus again, but this is Hermes, right? It's Thoth. It's a white wolf. So look at the size of this constellation. And yeah, it looks like a ship, but it also looks like a big giant basket. This is why they're always saying it's like a chariot, it's a basket. In Chinese mythology, it's always the girl that's weaving the basket. The triangle constellation, the main star, which everything's about the triangles, pyramids. It's the scale beam. It's also the wolf. There's the wolf. We found the wolf in the star. It's also called the moth Allah. So Allah, but it's a moth. So here's the keyhole, the pink nebula on the side here, and it's actually called the little man. Okay, so the little man goes through the keyhole, but this whole constellation is at its highest point on December 27th, which it ends up being on the equator, and the equator is ruled by An, the god. Oh, look, it's Alice in Wonderland party with the Obamas, and there's a little man. Aha. Now, if you ever watch the Charlie Wonka Chocolate Factory with Johnny Depp, he's like the Mad Hatter. And I think that's basically representing Trump, the Mad Hatter. You got the one-eye god, Alice. But yeah, it's the little man that in that movie. It's all about the little man. So here we have an old picture of the ship, and like there's a big, huge face on the front of it, but all faces on the side of it. So it's filled with people. Yeah. Remember I said there was magnetic cloud clusters at the bottom of the ship, and here it says cloud of mist at the brow of Argo. And then they divided it all up, right? And there's one called the Pupus. It's the deck. It's called the poop deck. Okay, so this is almost comical, but it's not. It's not funny. It is funny though. It's hard to, I don't know. It's just crazy. So the crazy part is that the Q letter, which is elf, is the 21st letter, which is the tarot card, but it also means phi, right? The Q means phi, and the phi means the eye of a needle of the back of the head of the neck and the nape of the neck. It's like you get a needle in the nape of your neck. That's what phi means. That's what Q means. Okay, so this is what's happening on the ship. So this 21st letter in the Quran, or Arabic, is a Q or Qaf again. But what's interesting, I saw here, it relates to the number 45. So that, and it's like to Judgment Day. So here we see here, after you've gone through the gate of Taurus, which is the silver gate, right? And Jupiter's there, that's God. And you go through, you get to meet Medusa. So you basically get turned to stone by Perseus. And this is the Satan star in there. So the Satan in you gets turned to stone. You have Pleiades in the shoulder. That's because they're running all this, the Pleiades. And then basically you come back through the gate, and then you chase the rabbit down the rabbit hole, which is this green snake, which is Iridias. It's Radius again, so it's the but it's ER this time instead of UR. And then you have the clock at the bottom. Okay, so that's why it's always in Alice in Wonderland. I'm late. And it's always the white rabbit. He's got the clock. That's what they're talking about, right? And so basically, when you come out of there, you're a sculpture. You're turned to stone because you looked at Medusa, and your phoenix flies away. So you no longer have your phoenix anymore. And then you have the big sea monster there, Cetus, and the triangle has the wolf on it, and then you see Aries. That's like because when you go through the gate, you either get reborn again, you get killed, and you become a kid again, like a goat. There's Capella above, that's the goat, and then you have Aries, which is the sheep. So you either die or you get turned to stone and brought back down. And basically, you're just part of the cyborg in the smart cities. And you're very calm, and you're at peace because you can't control your own emotions. So basically, you don't get to live here anymore on this planet because the planet is ascending, and because you can't control your emotions, you got too much hate. You're one-sided. You're either left or right, and you can't find the middle ground in your heart. So basically, you don't get to live here with your emotions anymore. You just become like a robot, and you get to be in a smart city. So you're not interfering with the upgrade of the planet. That's basically hell. And so everybody else gets the 1,000 years of non-aging and manifesting everything that they want. So it's really, hell is going up, and then you get sent back down. There's a little twist, right? There's a twist there in the Bible. They don't tell you that. Iridanus, it reminds me of you're rid of your DNA, Dennis. But it's actually the river Leth. It's where you've got all your memory gets wiped. When the dead have their memories erased by the river Leth, or you get reincarnated. Yeah, so it's oblivion, forgetfulness. So it's usually green, and that's why Obama had that green stone. And also, it's flowing down to hell from purgatory to be frozen in around Satan. Flows green water of Lethe. There you go. And reference offers a few more English translations. Yeah, so basically, and you see up here, there's another river called Memorisin. It's like Nemosin. Yeah, so it's like, that's where they get the word Nemo from in the Disney movies. Nemosin is, I guess you get your sins are, washed away. Nemosin is actually the purple rain that's going to be coming from Saturn, and that's going to wash away all the pain and bring full memory of everything from all your past lives. So the word ER derives from ERI, but also like it's emergency room, but it's, yeah, they're saying ERI. ERI means exclusionary. So yeah, you get basically kicked out. The river Styx, the river Lethe, and Eridanus, they're all kind of the same. So nitrogen is atomic number 7. It's the harvest. It's the wheat harvest. So this, I think, is the collection of, yeah, it's the collection of the phosphorus. I think it has relation to do with the collecting of the phosphorus. And I'm going to explain, we already know what phosphorus is made from, right? So nitrogen narcosis, it's called raptures of the deep. So it alters consciousness, and it makes you numb, and so you can't move, and you're kind of drunk. So I think this is pretty much what happens when you get sucked up, and you're kind of just like paralyzed. Okay, so the nitrogen makes you drunk, but the xenon means ghostly. It means a stranger, a guest. Yeah, I'm not thinking this is too good. Lord, master. It's a hostile. This is xenon. Yeah, the etymology of this. So it's like a host. Yeah, it's like it's taking over. So the xenon is like a general anesthesic. So you're not going to feel anything. Yeah, so the nitron is getting you drunk, and this is like making you so you don't feel anything, and you're kind of like spinning. And yeah, I'm not sure I want the xenon route. The interaction of the plasma with the electrodes generates ultraviolet photons, which then excite the phosphor coatings. So you can see it has to do with phosphorus when they're using this xenon. So what's weird is it's like it says it has the speed of sound of xenon gas is less than an air. And if you inhale it, your vocal cords, you kind of like lose your tone in your vocal cords, so you can't speak. So basically, somebody can do whatever they want to you, and you can't say anything. Okay, so there's this Zion is a trace gas in Earth's atmosphere. Okay, it has something to do with Krypton too. So here we got the Superman story. But yeah, we can go on and read all about this. But yeah, it's in the atmosphere. Here's a Gnostic kind of interpretation of the whole mem letter mem and the sea goddess, and you can, if you want to read it and get into some of this biblical stuff, you can, but I'm going to move on here. But it is interesting. It's really the upper and lower realms is the X that we saw before. The nail with the two hands, hand of God on either side, makes the X. It's the upper and lower dimensions. So Isis is the green goddess of life, daughter of earth and sky. She is the water goddess in her early tears for Osiris, caused by the Nile to overflow. So yeah, she's the lady of life, the lady of everlasting life. She is the green goddess of life and earth, and she is the divine mother. So yeah, so she's kind of like separating the good from the bad. That's what she represents. And there she is in the periodic table, vanadinium. It's the atomic number 23. That's her number, the pain. And here it's saying it's Old Norse for a Scandinavian goddess. Her name was Frigga then in Norse, but yeah, that's who she is. So vanadium relates to Venus. So there, yeah, it's definitely about her. Something to do with redness to the salts when heated. So yeah, I'm not sure how this mixes in. If you're a scientist, let me know. Yeah, I forgot to mention that when you pass after the rabbit and you go into Orion, you go right by the hand of God, and then you have the hammer coming down on you as well right before you go into the horns. So yeah, there's a whole mythos there. So the hand of God's in Orion, and then Perseus has got this head. It's the demon star, has the weird eye, the two weird eyes in the head. It's the Gorgon Medusa. So everybody that looks at this head turns to stone. Um, and it's Satan's head. It's referred to as Satan's head, and he has it in his hand. So yeah, I think that's how they're going to turn people to stone when they look at it, because basically once you get the needle in your neck, you're going to turn to stone because you're going to lose your phoenix flame that's so precious. So yeah, here we have with Perseus, he strikes, he scrapes out stacker of cities. So you're going to a different city than the golden city. Goddess, related to goddess of death, and Xerxes, and king of Argos. So the Argonauts, the football, not a good thing. Remember way back I was talking about the old man in the sea and had the dragon on its back? Well, the old man in the sea is Perseus, that has the Medusa head that turns everybody to stone, and he ends up piling up corpses there. So yeah, it's you basically, yeah, you get turned to stone. If you get taken to the ship, you get turned to stone, and then you get to come back. You get down the rabbit hole. That's what the whole Alice in Wonderland is all about. So here's he is on the sea monster, Cetus. He's chopping off its head, and he's saving our media. Media. Yeah, it's funny how Trump never says media. He always says fake news because his daughter is a media. And there's Hermes with his little boots flying up. It's because he's helping Perseus. So there's the whole story there. So yeah, so basically here's the rest of the story. Like I showed before, yeah, you go down the Eridanus River, which is the River of Styx. You go down, and then there's this nail here beside it. That thing is basically scrapes your head. It's yeah, they're scratching something out of your head. They're taking something out of your head with the needle. And then there she is sitting in her chair on the right hand side there. And guess who Perseus is? Donald Trump has a Jewish son. His name is Jared Kushner, who's owner of the most expensive single building property purchased in U.S. history. It is the home of the Lucent Technologies, home of the RFID chip technology, and it happens to be on the 666 Fifth Avenue. So yeah, he's Perseus. He gets to decide whether you have the mark or not, and he's going to throw you back down the rabbit hole. And there's his lovely wife, Ivanka, and she's got the white wolf. That's not a surprise. Everything, all the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. The Canopus star is actually just above Perseus and the Medusa head, which it's the goat, right? The sheep is below the ram, and then above is the goat. So I think it's the people that get sucked up and then they get to be reincarnated again. They don't have to go into purgatory and come back into these, smart cities, part of the cyborg. So here it is. It's the driver, the thunder goat. It's also the X, the name of goat. it's the 5 chariots. It all has symbolism to being a goat. So I think this whole thing is, about that. So you get to have a second chance if you want to be reborn. And also the name of the star Cabela, its name in Mul is game, Gam, but backwards it's mag, right? So the mag is the magnet. So yeah, it gets you up there, but you have a chance to be reborn through reincarnation. I also think it has a lot to do with children, like because our children are called kids, and the whole thing with the Lost Boys. If you go watch a Lost Boys music video, it's all about people floating up and stuff, or things floating up. But I'm just thinking maybe the kids, get to come back. Maybe their memories are wiped, but they do get to come back. Kind of the whole thing like with Peter Pan, there's no parents. And then it's also related to the sapphire stone, which is interesting because this has to do with the whole hexagon shape it's called the winter hexagon. It joins to the Kabbalah star, and maybe that has to do with for the kids, they get to return somehow. But if you're a sheep without your fleece, you're going back down into the whole AI kind of reality. Okay, so this whole river, Iridis constellation has a star of Iridu, which is also called the Nun key, so it's a high priestess for Earth, for the cow. And it's sacred for Enki, the domain of the abyss. And then they have the Pathon whole mythos of that with he's driving the chariots, so it's all there. So here we have oh, this is the little engraver thing, the nail when you're coming down the river, it shows. But what's interesting about this is this relates to Melania with her red ribbon week. It's the engraver because it represents a ribbon on it. So yeah, so the nail that they scratch out your flame with has a ribbon. And you notice her red ribbon week started on the 23rd for the week of the dead, because you want to be gratefully dead. That means you've ascended. And the whole rainbow arc is when on the winter solstice is when the Milky Way goes from east to west, which creates like the dome. And that's when this event's going to happen because it's the week of Saturnalia, which is always worshiping Saturn. And this is why Christmas ended up being on that week. It's all with Saturn worship. So the clock at the end of the Eridanus River that basically takes your memory away is also called a bell. It's also a measure or a mark. A water thief is all relating to this word. The Eridanus River is green, which is like the river of Lethe, and it's also the rabbit hole. So the rabbit hole brings you to the clock, like just in Alice in Wonderland, I'm late, and she's always chasing the rabbit because the rabbit is at the top of the river, and then you go down the rabbit hole of the river of Lethe, basically, or you can just see it as a rabbit hole, and then you come down to the clock at the end. Yeah, so the water clock, it also means to steal or to hide, okay, in water. So yeah. So Ernest Hemingway, I guess, is the ex-share. So he's trying to wake us up because he wrote this book called For Whom the Bell Tolls. It's from this poem, and it's all about no man is an island, entirety of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main, or it is the clod bee washed away by the sea. So for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. I found this, that somebody had calculated all the days in the Bible to all the events and to do with the moons and everything. And they had come out to 2024 as well, but November 11th. But, it's all relating to the sky. This whole religion, the Zooism religion, is all based on the planets being, Jupiter being the god planet, all the months being, 12 months in the year, all relates to the orbit of Jupiter, which is 12 years to go around. So that's the god planet. And then Saturn is the father of time, and Saturn changes, the ages of time. So we're going into the age of Aquarius, and so that's why Jupiter and Saturn are so important. And there's this massive conjunction, great conjunction that happens every 20 years. That's happening in 2020 with these two planets, and it ends up making it look like from Earth, if you have Jupiter in front of Saturn, if you look, directly at it, you could see it looking like Nibiru with the winged planet. So I think it's from that great conjunction. So Comey tweeted out about Nibiru, watching migration, white pelicans in Idaho, thinking about Nibiru serenity prayer. So yeah, there's the prayer there, but you got the V, and he's talking about Nibiru. Now you got to remember, in this Zooism religion, Thoth, or Mercury, is Nabu, Naburu. Naburu is, what's the ru at the end? It's the UR. It always comes back to the UR. So I couldn't believe it when I did the etymology for urine, which is what phosphorus is made from, and it's water, liquid milk. Okay, it's also means the sea, Old Norse, the sea, drizzling rain. So this is what the purple rain is, and this is what they're probably extracting from people. It's the urine making the phosphorus, because the phosphorus is actually used, was used in the Philadelphia experiment, which is like, cloaking and trying to, break through other dimensions, like with the Bermuda Triangle. This is all to do with phosphorus, okay? So going into a higher dimension, this whole purple rain is going to transform the whole planet into this higher dimension. But it's crazy to think that what the phosphorus is made from. I can't believe it. A whole new meaning to golden showers. Here you can kind of see the dome and the purple rain from Saturn, and the fish right beside Saturn's foot. That's Fumalo. That's Archangel Uriel. It's not Ariel, it's Uriel. So we got the UR again. And then Venus is there. She's in her pen with her goats, rounding them up. There you can see the whole story there. And there's Trump stepping on the dragon and weighing the people's hearts. And if your heart is heavier than a feather, you go to the right, and if it's lighter than a feather, you go left. That's after you've come up in the boat of Osiris. The Osiris is basically, Or is bear. So you come up in the bear's chariot. The Big Dipper is the big bear, right? So yeah, Trump's going to win the election in 2020. It's all part of the story. Mercury and the Sun are right in the Golden Gate, and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn are flanking him, so there's no way he's going to lose the election. And the funny part about it all is that they've known this right from time started. This has all been planned out. So yeah, so it's just a game. It's just a ride. So the Zooism religion has an annulment of debt and wealth, and a redistribution. So that's a good thing. So that's all with this religion. So it looks like that's what's going to happen. And we kind of knew that. That was the whole game plan with Q, right? So it's all working out right. It's just a little shocking to know how this whole Judgment Day is going down. It's a little bit a lot to kind of take in, but they're showing it everywhere. This isn't Imagine Dragons. It says here, the homecoming, the dance, find your date. Yeah, I found the date. It's 2024 winter solstice. So here she is dancing. She's the person in black with the ruby shoes is floating. He's asleep, and he falls to the ground. And you want to be these people from Easter Island. They're showing that they buried them into the ground. What a great way to tell us what to do, right? If you knew the story. But most, I guess, anthropologists either don't know or they don't want us to know. Yeah, stay grounded. So here she is, the Queen of Heaven. She decides whether you stay or go, and you float up on your Pegasus horse if your soul is good, and that's why you get to stay. And then the other ones that get in the wind, get to fall back down the rabbit hole. You want to stay out of the rabbit hole. You're Alice, and you don't want to follow down that rabbit hole. You don't want to go into the keyhole. And here's the all-seeing eye with Alice and the Obamas. There's Barack trying to be Satan with his black shirt and his white collar. Michelle being the tiger eye. Yeah, Cat's Eye Nebula. And then the Mad Hatter, that would be Trump in a way, I guess. You know, he's a cuckoo nut that's always saying crazy things, making people all stressed out. And there's the Tower of Souls, you know, behind them. So, and you can see the two daughters, one dressed in gold to go to the left, and the other one going right with the black lipstick. She went to the right. So I was thinking about the cube being the parameter of the Freemasons, you know, the level and the compass, and then the circle being the same circumference as the square ends up being phi. And so what's funny is this whole thing with the parameter and the circumference is P and C, right? So then I remember Trump had gone into this whole thing with peas and carrots, and I was like, oh, I bet you that's related to that. So here I was reading about it when they were calling these two turkeys last Thanksgiving, and one had to be pardoned, one not. And the turkeys were called peas and carrots. So this is funny. Peas, remember we said phosphorus is made from urine. And then we have the Peppy, the frog, is pee-pee, means fun. 39 pounds, which adds up to 12, enjoys listening to country music of Brad Paisley, eating popcorn, ice fishing, and watching planes. So you're on the ground and you're doing all this, right? So Brad Paisley's song is awesome. It's all about, you know, meeting all your loved ones that have passed. And you're going to have a chance to do that. So I was just blown away when I listened to the song because I didn't know the song. The song's called When I Get Where I'm Going with Dolly Parton. And then it goes on here. He loves popcorn, ice fishing, watching planes, and hopes to learn how to fly someday. So I was like, oh my God. So those are the people that ascend. And then the carrot is carrot. That's your toroidal field, right? It's a ka again. And the rot is like Tor backwards. But anyhow, it's 41 pounds adds to 5. And of course, 39 and 41 all add up to 17. And he digs Elvis Presley, which I bet you is Don't Step on My Blue Suede Shoes, because when you go Saturn, it's the blue suede shoes, right? Saturn blue. And then the M&M is the W for the Queen. It's right. It's M upside down or W. It's kind of a joke there. And that they're gonna be doing yoga, because that means you're kind of like a zombie. You're just like so low key. You're just mellow. It's because you're in the AI city. They like to do telemark snow skiing, which is just really smooth, and you know, and they hope to meet the hokey bird one day, which is a bird like it's like a peacock almost, but it's not. It's like a rooster, but he's got the big fan tail. So hopefully one day he will be a bird, but not this time around. So there's the whole story right there. I couldn't believe it. Oh, I was just thinking, you know, the Elvis song is probably Jailhouse Rock. Yeah, you go to jail. That's your go to jail card. The Freemason logo is a compass and a square, and this relates to phi with this symbol here. And phi relates to the number 5, which is the 23rd number, like pain again, which ends up being W, like 23 is W, the 23rd letter in the alphabet. So basically, Q is a needle in your neck to go to hell. Maybe that's why Trump used the symbol to awaken us to it. And also, it looks like a 1 and a 0, so it's kind of like just like computer code, right? So, which reminds me of just the whole cyborg thing. If you want to be on the tree of life, you just get kind of put back into the beehive for the cyborg, or you get to go through the door to heaven. That's what this whole story is all about. And here we have the etymology for dusa, which is sleep, to doze, to make dull. So this is Medusa. This is like me dusa, so it's like me sleeping and being dull. That's going back into the tree of life. and getting part of the cyborg. And here we have Trump talking about, it was actually just this week, I think it was on Halloween Day. He said, basically, I mean, not many wise would react that way to this tragedy about this woman who had her husband was shot. I know mine wouldn't, Trump said. So he's basically saying, you know, Melania wouldn't mind if he got shot. And this whole thing, when he talks about the witch hunt, I think it's just a joke about her, you know, being the pagan high priestess. And here's like the Day of the Dead for Halloween. It, you know, it's all about the ascension of your soul going to this higher level. It's not about dead people, you know, like celebrating people that are dead. It's about the rebirth into this whole process of being able to go through the doorway to heaven. That's what it really is all about, always has been. And here's Melania with just on Halloween Day with the lambs. She went to lamb school, elementary school. That was pretty funny. And I knew something like that would be posted on Halloween because it's one of the pagan holidays. And this I found at the Nabu art gallery in Israel. And I got onto a French site, and basically I found this artifact, and there you go. They got the all-seeing eye, and it's a woman. So yeah, the high priestess is God, and somehow it got changed to being a man somewhere along the line. But this is interesting too, from the Nabu art gallery. You know, you're green, you turn to blue, you're kind of on fire. There's a mirror image of you, and you have your dove, and there's the pentagon star in the person's hand as well. These are ancient artifacts and ancient paintings. Now you could say, oh, well, what has that got to do with today's time? But here we have these Amazon has these wrist bands to calculate, you know, your health and everything. It's called Nabu X. You know, it's like in our faces. And here's, you know, the little tag here. We've got the three snakes twirling, you know, the whole twirling thing going up into the sky. So it is in our modern culture. You just have to know the symbols, and hopefully after this video you'll see the symbols, because it's pretty much everywhere. Almost every movie, tons of music videos. It's just everywhere. So here we have Virgo constellation, a really ancient one, and she's got the scale, you see. So she decides who goes, like the justice, and it's the justice of your heart. So it's like Virgo is actually the Magna Mother, which is, you know, Isis. It's the whole story just repeating itself. And just below Virgo, or beside, is this serpent Hydra. You know, she's supposed to have 3 heads. I found an old artifact of it, but they had cut the head off, so it would be interesting to know what it originally was, if it was 3 heads and what the heads were. But I found this really cool, that the owl is sitting on the snake. Because, you know, this owl symbolism is everywhere in Washington, and, you know, through a lot of Freemason stuff. And here we have the goddess Sophia. You know, she's black and black. So this is all Magna Mother, and with the owl, you know, this represents wisdom. You know, I guess if you can see the symbols, then you're wise, you know, or the birds come in the dark, like the sirens. They come, they're bird women that come, the sound of the singing voices. If you don't know the whole mythos of the sirens, they come with these beautiful voices, and the flute, which relates to Magna Mother, and the harp, which is actually on the left-hand path of the Golden Gate. There's the harp. So I think if you that's the story. That's right. If you play the harp louder than their voices, you know, you don't hear them, because you don't want to hear them. Because once you hear them, you basically die. And it's always about the ship. So the Argo ship, and I guess there's going to be some frequency coming from Cassiopeia constellation, because there is a radio frequency coming from there, and maybe it has like a hypnotic sound to it. But you know, it's the same. It's in like you know, the Little Mermaid with Walt Disney. You know, she loses her voice, because you lose your voice, but you hear this beautiful singing voice. So it's all to do with that whole mythos of the sirens, and they're when does a bird sing kind of. It's when you hear them singing, that's not a good thing. They're also symbolized as mermaids in more modern culture. The mythos is that you need to block your ears with wax to survive the sirens. And at the same time, there'll be this beautiful plasma kind of snake thing happening from the cat's eye nebula, which is the all-seeing eye of God. And that's what a lot of people, why people fear the snakes, and that's all through the mythos of ancient history, is the snakes. The snakes, it's because the plasma event is it's going to be like purple and red. So most people will go outside to watch this, right? And then that's where the danger comes. So you don't want to hear the sound. You don't want to look at it. It's basically you're looking at Medusa. Here's the owl symbolism at the White House. It's all built around the owl shape. The owl being wise and comes in the dark. Mark this date on your calendar, December 23rd. Have at least 10 days of food. And if you notice, the year 2022 is the year of the tiger. 2024 is the year of the dragon, and 2023 is the year of the rabbit. So the 23rd day of December on 2024 is the day of the rabbit. It's the moon day. It's the moon. Everything's by the moon, the yin and the yang. And of course, December being really the 10th month, if the zodiac was starting in the right spot, and it's Deci for 10, plus the 23 ends up becoming to 33, which is our completion number. Then you have the 1111, like Remembrance Day, which really is heaven. It adds to 22, which is the completion of the tarot cards, with the universe card being 21 and then 0 being the Fool's card, depending on which path you take. And if you notice that Remembrance Day is when you basically get your memory back, your full memory, and it has to do with poppies. Because you're on this exhilaration of this new enlightenment, which is going to feel, I guess it has to do with poppies or opium somehow. So yeah, and then 22, which is 1111, and then you have the number 33, which they both add up to 55, which is a lot in the Q-posts. And part of the reason, this is so like a clincher for the 2024 is this X with the two eclipses that are going across America, and it just so happens to be crossing on Little Egypt, right at the southern point of Illinois, with the confluence of the two major rivers in the U.S., which brings us to X and Y, which all relates to our DNA. So here's back to the Zooism religion, and the green would be like staying on Earth, blue is heaven, and the red, black, and white is hell. They call them like three heavens, but that's kind of what I've figured out by now. So what's interesting is, the one month is called Abe, and the other month is called Ziza. This is between December and January, but if you notice, the number is 22 and 24. So there we have, the tiger and the dragon representation there. They also, the 2 months add up to 21, which goes to the tarot cards. And then the blue, which would be heaven, adds up to 33, which is a big, huge Freemason number. So let me see it again. And remember, the Chinese president, his name is Z, like for X, and his wife is Abi, like just like Abe, they're the same month. Oh, look, Melania giving Michelle Obama a blue box on Inauguration Day. A Saturn blue box, a Tiffany blue box, and Michelle happens to be in a red and black dress. So M and Nun, this is all about the water, right? And basically it leads you to, Mem is associated with the hanged man. So you don't want to be the hanged man. You don't want to be stuck between the water on the tree of life, which is the abyss. So stay out of the abyss, be a bird, and learn to fly. Just add an E to Mem and you get meme. Try to get out of the left-right paradigm and just open your heart. Look at all the signs, because signs, everywhere are signs. And just enjoy the ride.